Alright, should be on now. Yes, sir.
Purely as a fun topic for discussion, and I fully expect that people will disagree with me on the placements I have for some of these characters, but in my eyes, that's a good thing, and the purpose of this video is to create discussion. So if you want to comment, fully encourage you to do so, and I'm actively looking at getting community members involved in future videos like this for that very reason. So keep it cute and keep it classy. I've gone with the protagonists from the numbered games only, but with one exception because I feel they're particularly noteworthy. But if you have any other spin-off protagonists you think deserve to be higher on this list, like Zack or even someone like Jack Garland, feel free to say so in the comments. And of course, if you enjoy this type of video, do let me know. I've actually been asked a fair few times to make more videos like this and haven't done so in a while, so likes, subscribes, etc. are very much appreciated, whether it be here on YouTube or over on Twitch or TikTok. And with that, let's get started. And where better to start than the very beginning? The only one of the characters on this list that's released before I was born, Warrior of Light of Final Fantasy I fame, released in 1987, is the hallmark of what Final Fantasy has come to represent. The Warrior of Light isn't particularly noteworthy for his story, his lore, his world building, anything like that, but the design of the Warrior of Light is iconic. And it's because of this iconography that I actually hold Warrior of Light in extremely high regard. He's an icon, he's a design, he's a representation of the franchise. It's not about his lore, his world building, or his background. It's just the look. Warrior of Light is Final Fantasy. Without Warrior of Light, there is nothing that came after him. But of course, there isn't an awful lot to talk about with Warrior of Light beyond his design and the fact that he is this representation of Final Fantasy. So while he might be one of my favourite characters, I think a lot of people would put him pretty low on this list. But I'm actually going to go against the grain here, and I'm actually going to put him in A tier, just because of the fact that, like I said, without Warrior of Light, there is no Final Fantasy. So then we move on to Final Fantasy II and Firion. Now, Firion is a little bit of a nothing character, much like Final Fantasy II is amongst the Final Fantasy pantheon. Outside of his role as a rebel against Emperor Matthias's army in Final Fantasy II, there really isn't an awful lot to talk about with this character at all. His design is cool, much like any other Amano design for Final Fantasy characters, but he doesn't have an awful lot going on for him beyond that. His whole thing is that he's good at using weapons. Like, he doesn't have anything particularly interesting beyond that. There's nothing outwardly wrong with him though, so I wouldn't say he was a terrible character. I just don't think he's particularly remarkable either. And so for that reason, I'm pretty happy to just put him in shrug tier. Like, I wouldn't say he was outright terrible, he's just a bit nothing. Now, I'm going to be a bit cheeky here with Final Fantasy III, and I'm actually going to give it two different entries, because I think that the fact you have Onion Knight and then Luneth as two different characters actually puts them in two different tiers. I would argue that the Onion Knight is one of the weakest protagonists Final Fantasy's ever had. He's like Warrior of Light, except without any of the iconography or the history. He just has not a lot going for him. He's very plain. He introduces the job system, but that's more a hallmark of the game than the character, and he just has no plot really whatsoever. The plot of Final Fantasy III tends to revolve around the world it's based in, rather than the characters that are involved. They are meant as avatars, which is a good thing, except when you're ranking protagonists against one another. Design-wise, Onion Knight is fine. Obviously, he's meant to be a lot younger looking than Warrior of Light. He's meant to be a bit more sprightly than Warrior of Light, certainly in the Dissidia games, but in his original game, he's meant as a nothing character, so I just can't really put him particularly high on this list. And evidently, Square Enix felt the same way about Onion Knight, because when Final Fantasy III was remade for the DS, it changed the characters altogether. They weren't the Onion Knights anymore. They were Luneth, Arc, Refia, and Ingus. So, Luneth, they try and infuse a bit more personality and at least differentiate him from the Onion Knight by changing his design slightly, but I still think he's a bit of a nothing character. So when it comes to actually putting them in a tier list, I'd say that they're some of the weakest there. Luneth, I'm going to put in C tier, because at least they tried to make him differentiated from the other characters in the game and infuse a bit of personality into him. But much like Firion, he just kind of there. Onion Knight, though, I'm actually going to put in D tier. Not for any other reason than he is designed not to really be a character, and as I said earlier, He's Warrior of Light, but without the iconography and the history, so he's just kind of there. So now with Final Fantasy IV, now we're talking. Now we're starting to get some of the characters that have actual backstories, actual plot behind them, and we're starting with a great one in Cecil. Cecil, as of now, isn't particularly groundbreaking, but you've got to remember that back in the 90s, characters like Cecil didn't really exist all that much in video games. To have a character that starts on a darker path and then redeem themselves was considered more groundbreaking back then, and he does it really well. It helps that Cecil's design, both as Dark Knight Cecil and as Paladin Cecil, are both pretty iconic. They look fantastic, they hold up really well to this day, and he's just a great character to look at. I mean, Final Fantasy IV's story was pretty heavily alluded to in Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, pretty heavily throughout, and Cecil's story was translated pretty heavily into another character, so that goes to show a hallmark as to why he's still worthy nowadays. If anything, I'd say the weakest aspect of Cecil is how he performs in battle. Compared to most other characters in Final Fantasy IV, Cecil's actually pretty weak. This is, however, somewhat addressed in the 3D remake of Final Fantasy IV, certainly with access to things like augments and the ability to change characters' skill set from what they start with as a default. Cecil still isn't the best character in the game, not by a long shot, but he is significantly better, so I think that has some points towards his favour. Now, do I think that Cecil deserves to be our first S-tier character? I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say no. Like, he is very cool and he deserves to be high on this list. And I know that Warrior of Light is as high as he is, and a lot of people will probably disagree with me on that, but that's a personal bias thing. Cecil's just really good all around, but is he the most memorable character on this list? I don't think so, so I'm quite happy to put him in A tier. Bartz and Final Fantasy V. Final Fantasy V is one of my favourite games in the entire series, but let's be realistic, the story and the characters are not the reason why. Final Fantasy V is very focused on its gameplay, the refinement of the job system, and just fleshing out combat mechanics that Final Fantasy IV was setting up. Bartz is a very mediocre character. Like, he has his pros, like his connection with chocobos like Boko are really cool. He's a lot more light-hearted than a lot of characters, but what he has in light-heartedness and whimsy, he lacks in depth, and not a lot of the game really explores his character. Of course, that's not to say that Bartz has no character. He has a tragic backstory with his parents when you visit the town of Lix, but that's kind of it. Like, beyond that, he's there to be funny, he's there to be silly, and that's very unusual for a Final Fantasy protagonist, and it does mean that he's quite surface level in comparison to a lot of others. In terms of power, he's no different really from any of the other characters in Final Fantasy V, and I try to keep any kind of power scaling to the games in which they come from, otherwise that's an entire whole different discussion that I don't want to get into. But I find that Bartz is just another character much like Luneth and Firion. They serve more as the avatar for the player than they do their own characters, and so for that reason, I'm pretty happy to put Bartz in C tier. This then brings us to Final Fantasy VI. Now, Final Fantasy VI's story was groundbreaking when it was released, and its cast of characters is a major reason as to why. Terra, the character that you start the game with, one could even argue that she's not the main character of the story. That mantle could go to Celes, it could go to Locke. I think that realistically Final Fantasy VI's biggest strength is the fact that it has such a strong ensemble cast, and each character individually does have their time to shine. But because of that, each individual character doesn't shine brighter than any other, and I think it speaks to the volumes of strength that Final Fantasy VI's entire ensemble cast has, that Terra is just another character in the list, and she's still a really good one, but is she one of the most iconic protagonists that Final Fantasy's ever had? Is Celes? Is Locke? Of course, Terra's story has some real highlights in it. The first time that she becomes an Esper, understanding her heritage being the daughter of Madouine. Then having her story arc in Moblis, where she has lost the will to fight and has to regain it in order to protect the children that she's come to adopt in the world of Ruin. There's a lot to love about Terra, but I don't think that she stands out any more than, say, Celes, who has that cliff scene, and you know the one I mean. Terra does, however, also stand out as one of the very few female protagonists in Final Fantasy history. There actually aren't very many of them at all, and I do think that she is very strong. I wouldn't put her above Cecil necessarily, and my horrendous bias for Warrior of Light, but she's definitely one of the most solid characters out there, so I would put her in a very solid B tier, possibly A tier. And then, of course, we come to Final Fantasy VII. Cloud is the icon he is for a reason. Final Fantasy VII put Final Fantasy on the map for a lot of people, and a big part of that is due to Cloud. His iconography with the Buster Sword, Omni Slash, the way he fights, that spiky hair, everyone knows who Cloud is, and there's a good reason for it. I think we live in a time where it's almost cool to hate on Final Fantasy VII because so many people love it, but one has to ask themselves how Final Fantasy VII became the icon it is today. Why Final Fantasy VII specifically has the remake trilogy, has so much more expansion on it than any other Final Fantasy in the franchise. Cloud is a big part of it. His story arc is very memorable. He goes through essentially PTSD. He has a lot of very human traits. He also appeals to the fantastical in a way a lot of characters don't. He's an icon, and I think he belongs to be pretty much at the top of this list, if not one of them at the very least. I do think that Cloud's placement on this tier list is going to depend and shift potentially depending on how part 3 of the remake trilogy goes, because there are certain other characters, if they were on this list, and, you know, little preview, I'm going to be making a similar list for antagonists, and one of them has shifted somewhat because of the remake trilogy. I'm still going to put Cloud in S tier. I'm sorry. I know that people will probably disagree and think it's cool to hate on Cloud and Final Fantasy VII. I don't, and it's not even my favourite Final Fantasy. I just think that he's made such an impact on the gaming world for his characterization, his design, the way he plays, the way he looks, the way his story plays out. He deserves to be that high. And now for the one spin-off title I've allowed myself within this video, Final Fantasy Tactics. And yes, this is partly because Final Fantasy Tactics The Evil East Chronicles is in the near future, but I want to talk about Ramza. Ramza Beyoulve, and the rest of Final Fantasy Tactics for that matter, is some of the best writing I've ever seen in a video game, and I think it would be criminal not to mention Ramza in this list. I mean, there's also Delita to talk about. Whether you consider him a protagonist of that game is another matter, but we can talk about that more after Final Fantasy Tactics re-releases, because for me, Delita would sit above literally everybody else on this list, but he's technically not the protagonist, so we're going to go with Ramza here. I truly believe that at the center of Ramza's character, more than any other Final Fantasy character in existence, is love. Ramza is a character that is thrust into some terrible circumstances. He is born into privilege, but that doesn't serve him well as his life goes on, and as you will see through playing Final Fantasy Tactics, the ways in which he navigates everything that happens around him, both politically and with the supernatural, Ramza always comes back to wanting to see the good in everything around him, and he continues to do that right the way to the end of the game. And I think that makes him very admirable and relatable as a character, and honestly, someone to aspire to. So I'm sorry, I know I'm only putting one spin-off character in this list, but I have to put Ramza up there in S tier. In terms of writing, I think he's better than Cloud. In fact, I think he's better than practically everybody on this list. I genuinely adore Ramza and Final Fantasy Tactics, so I had to put it in this video. So then we have a character I'd consider to be one of the more contentious characters on this list, which is Squall. Squall's a character a lot of people like to write off because he's just an edgy teenager, right? But so is a lot of characters in Final Fantasy and JRPGs, so I think that Squall actually epitomizes that trope of character very well. And he actually does know how to have a lot of fun that you perhaps wouldn't expect him to have. Design-wise, I'd argue that Squall is one of the most iconic characters in Final Fantasy. Everyone knows the scar, everyone knows what the Gunblade looks like. In fact, I don't think he's that far behind Cloud for being recognizable from the franchise at the very least. If anything, I think it's kind of sad that we
Shit.
didn't get Final Fantasy VIII in its original form. So for those of you that perhaps don't know, Final Fantasy VIII was originally designed to be a much bigger game than it actually is, where you'd have two protagonists, which were Squall and Laguna. Laguna's role in Final Fantasy VIII was originally going to be so much bigger than it ended up being, and so you'd have these two concurrent timelines constantly flashing back and forward between the two. But that didn't happen, so we got the way Final Fantasy VIII is now. So we still see a lot of that in Laguna, but to have seen him be an actual protagonist rather than a side character with a bit more backstory would have been cool. So I think Squall is a solid character. I wouldn't say he's one of the greats, and I'm not sure I would say he was up there with the likes of
Wow!
Ramza, despite his recognizability, because
So
he is
fucking bullshit,
He is an
man.
edgy teenager. Like, he is that way, and his
Fuck this
story
fucking
does
game.
take quite a while to kick
Really?
off, and he kind of bulldozes his own game, because if you're not named Squall or Renoa, you basically get no screen
Fuck,
time, and
man.
that bothers me. So,
two
despite
cards?
the fact that he is quite so heavily featured in Final Fantasy
So
VIII,
fucking
I'd say
gay.
he's a solid main character. I wouldn't say he was the best. Now, I can't talk about Final Fantasy without talking about Final Fantasy IX, and
Fuck this
Zidane
game, man.
is a very big part of what makes Final Fantasy IX as strong as it is. The character exemplifies positivity. I think there's a trend in characters I really like in Final Fantasy. It's the ones that tend to lean on relying on their positive traits to get them through negative situations, like Ramza. Cloud
Sorry.
is an icon, but he doesn't necessarily do that. He does the
I totally missed fucking.
basically get off, and but to have seen him be timelines constantly so designed to be a in the very least. If anything, one knows why, but Cloud. In fact, I think I know him, and he can him with release Shin Ramza, and Final on has shifted somewhat because of the remake trilogy. I'm still going to put Cloud in S tier. I'm sorry. I know that people will probably
Wait.
disagree and think Cloud's play very fantasy is the of Cecil necessarily, and my horrendous bias Warrior of Light, but she's definitely one of the most solid characters out there. So I would put her in a very solid B tier, possibly A tier. And then, of course, we come to Final Fantasy VII. Cloud is the icon he is for a reason. Final Fantasy VII put Final Fantasy on the map for a lot of people, and a big part of that is due to Cloud. His iconography
Badass
with the Buster
character.
Sword, Omni Slash, the way he fights, that spiky hair, everyone knows who Cloud is, and there's
He's
a
that
good
motherfucker.
reason for it. I think we live in a time where it's almost cool to hate on Final Fantasy VII because so many people love it, but one has to ask themselves how Final Fantasy VII became the icon it is today. Why Final Fantasy VII specifically has the remake trilogy, has so much more expansion on it than any other Final Fantasy in the franchise. Cloud is a big part of it. His story arc is very memorable. He goes through essentially PTSD. He has a lot of very human traits. He also appeals to the fantastical in a way a lot of characters don't. He's an icon, and I think he belongs to be pretty much at the top of this list, if not one of them at the very least. I do think that Cloud's placement on this tier list is going to depend and shift potentially depending on how part 3 of the remake trilogy goes, because there are certain other characters if they were on this list, and, you know, little preview, I'm going to be making a similar list for antagonists, and one of them has shifted somewhat because of the remake trilogy. I'm still going to put Cloud in S tier. I'm sorry. I know that people will probably disagree
Hell
and
yeah.
think it's cool to hate
You
on
better fucking have
Cloud and Final Fantasy VII. I don't, and it's not even my favorite Final Fantasy. I just think that he's made such an impact on the gaming world for his characterization, his design, the way he plays, the way he looks, and the way his story plays out. He deserves to be that high. And now for the one spin-off title I've allowed myself within this video, Final Fantasy Tactics. And yes, this is partly because Final Fantasy Tactics The Evil East Chronicles is in the near future, but I want to talk about Ramza. Ramza Beulv, and the rest of Final Fantasy Tactics for that matter,
So good.
is some of the best writing I've ever seen in a video game, and I think it would be criminal not to mention Ramza in this list. I mean, there's also Deleter to talk about. Whether you consider him a protagonist of that game is another matter, but we can talk about that more after Final Fantasy Tactics re-releases, because for me, Deleter would sit above literally everybody else on this list, but he's technically not the protagonist, so we're going to go with Ramza here. I truly believe that at the center of Ramza's character, more than any other Final Fantasy character in existence, is love. Ramza is a character that is thrust into some terrible circumstances. He is born into privilege, but that doesn't serve him well as his life goes on, and as you will see through playing Final Fantasy Tactics, the ways in which he navigates everything that happens around him, both politically and with the supernatural, Ramza always comes back to wanting to see the good in everything around him, and he continues to do that right the way to the end of the game. And I think that makes him very admirable and relatable as a character, and honestly, someone to aspire to. So I'm sorry, I know I'm only putting one spin-off character in this list, but I have to put Ramza up there in S tier. In terms of writing, I think he's better than Cloud. In fact, I think he's better than practically everybody on this list. I genuinely adore Ramza and Final Fantasy Tactics, so I had to put it in this video. So then we have a character I'd consider to be one of the more contentious characters on this list, which is Squall. Squall's a character a lot of people like to write off because he's just an edgy teenager, right? But so is a lot of characters in Final Fantasy and JRPGs, so I think that Squall actually epitomizes that trope of character very well. And he actually does know how to have a lot of fun that you perhaps wouldn't expect him to have. Design-wise, I'd argue that Squall is one of the most iconic characters in Final Fantasy. Everyone knows the scar, everyone knows what the gunblade looks like. In fact, I don't think he's that far behind Cloud for being recognizable from the franchise at the very least. If anything, I think it's kinda sad that we didn't get Final Fantasy VIII in its original form. So for those of you that perhaps don't know, Final Fantasy VIII was originally designed to be a much bigger game than it actually is, where you'd have two protagonists, which were Squall and Laguna. Laguna's role in Final Fantasy VIII was originally going to be so much bigger than it ended up being, and so you'd have these two concurrent timelines constantly flashing back and forward between the two. But that didn't happen, so we got the way Final Fantasy VIII is now. So we still see a lot of that in Laguna, but to have seen him be an actual protagonist rather than a side character with a bit more backstory would have been cool. So I think Squall is a solid character. I wouldn't say he's one of the greats.
I think that was wrong. I think they did a good job because it would have been too confusing for the audience.
Sure, I would say he was up there with the likes of Cloud and Ramza despite his recognizability, because he is an edgy teenager. Like, he is that way, and his story does take quite a while to kick off, and he kind of bulldozes his own game, because if you're not named Squall or Rinoa, you basically get no screen time, and that bothers me. So, despite the fact that he is quite so heavily featured in Final Fantasy VIII, I'd say he's a solid main character. I wouldn't say he was the best. Now, I can't talk about Final Fantasy without talking about Final Fantasy IX, and Zidane is a very big part of what makes Final Fantasy IX as strong as it is. The character exemplifies positivity. I think there's a trend in characters I really like in Final Fantasy. It's the ones that tend to lean on relying on their positive traits to get them through negative situations, like Ramza. Cloud is an icon, but he doesn't necessarily do that. He does the opposite and he shuts down entirely. Whereas characters like Ramza and Zidane, of course, are constantly trying to see the good in everything that goes on around them. However, I think the turning point for Zidane in what makes him such a powerful character in terms of evoking emotions and just being really well written is the point at which he breaks, which is when he goes to Terra and when he discovers his true identity, etc. And you have the entire Not Alone scene. Again, much like Terra, this is more exemplary of the ensemble cast of Final Fantasy IX, but Zidane is still the centrifugal point to progress the story in this instance. I also think Zidane is one of the characters that's best represented in games outside of Final Fantasy IX. Now, I know I normally talk about them just within the confines of their own game, but take this cutscene from Dissidia NT, for example. You have Terra and Zidane talking to Rama, just like he did in Final Fantasy IX with Garnet, but instead utilizing another character that would have an affinity for that. And I think that utilization does speak volumes to the strength of Zidane's character. And yet, maybe that's why I consider him to be one of the strongest main characters, or protagonists. I just think he's playful, he's whimsical, but he is serious when it matters. He's caring, he's loving. Just look at literally any cutscene in Final Fantasy IX that Zidane has alongside Vivi, and the ending to that game. Even his relationship with the villain, Kuja, is sympathetic, and he tries really hard to see the best in him despite all the crazy things that he does. So I personally would put him as an S tier character. I'd be curious to see if other people felt differently. Now, I've said for many a year that Final Fantasy X is the one Final Fantasy game I always recommend to someone who's never played a Final Fantasy game before. And Tidus is a big reason for why. I'm not the biggest fan of Tidus's design, and certainly not in the games outside of Final Fantasy X where he's gotten spikier for some reason. But I do think that his personality is very relatable for a lot of people, much like the characters I've mentioned before, like Ramza and Zidane. He is very much leaning on the positivity side of things, and that I really very much enjoy. With one scene in particular that I think elevates Tidus to a whole new level, and it's one a lot of people tend to, well, laugh at these days. The laughing scene in Final Fantasy X is often met with meme culture, people mocking it, people saying it's poorly done, that it makes no sense, etc. But I beg to differ. I think that the laughing scene in Final Fantasy X is what cements Tidus as a great character in Final Fantasy. He's there to try to distract Yuna from feeling all the things that she'd be feeling on this pilgrimage that's ultimately not going to end very well for her. He knows that it's difficult, she knows that it's difficult, and he's establishing this relationship with Yuna to try and make it so that everything's just a little bit easier for her. Fighting pain with humor. However, I would argue that Tidus isn't one of the single strongest protagonists Final Fantasy's ever had, because without Yuna, Tidus' story is significantly less interesting. Yuna is as much the protagonist of Final Fantasy X as he is, as is evident by the fact that she took over from him in FF10 too. And I think the real character in Final Fantasy X is the relationship between the two. So, do I think that Tidus is a great character? Absolutely. Do I think he stands on his own as one of the best characters or protagonists that Final Fantasy's ever had? I'm not so sure. So for that reason, love Tidus. I'd be very tempted to put him in S tier, but I think he's just a very slight notch under that. So I'm gonna put him in A tier, but that could easily be changed with your comments. So if you tell me why he should be in S tier without Yuna, I'd love to hear it. So now we get into murkier territory with Final Fantasy XI. Now, Final Fantasy XI is a weird one because there is a representative from FF11 that's used in other games like the mobile titles or Dissidia, etc., to showcase a protagonist for Final Fantasy XI, but I don't really think she is the protagonist for that game. Now, don't get me wrong, Shantotto is an amusing character. She's fun, she's crazy, she's angry, she's extremely powerful, but she's no protagonist for Final Fantasy XI. But therein lies the issue with the MMORPGs, and obviously we'll get to this with 14 as well. You are the main character for Final Fantasy XI and 14. That's kind of the point. And so the direction that your story takes is entirely down to you, and that story is going to be different for every person involved. So to call Shantotto the protagonist of Final Fantasy XI, despite the fact that she's not in half of it, just feels a little bit disingenuous and weird. So for that reason, I'm gonna put her in D tier. Not because I think she's a terrible character, just because I think it's strange that she's given the mantle of protagonist in a game in which she's not one. Okay, so let's move on to Final Fantasy XII, and let's talk about Vaan. I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that Vaan is one of the most disliked protagonists in Final Fantasy history, and I can absolutely see why. At the end of the day, Final Fantasy XII's storytelling methods are done a bit differently. I've always argued that the main character of Final Fantasy XII isn't Vaan, or Ash, or Balthier, or any of the main characters in fact. I'd say if anyone, it's Rabanasta. But let's be honest, me waxing lyrical about the politics and the ethics behind Final Fantasy XII storytelling isn't going to get us anywhere when it comes to rating Vaan as a protagonist. And I think the reason that a lot of people don't like Vaan is because, like Onion Knight and Warrior of Light, he's kind of an avatar for the player, like you're meant to see the world through his eyes. But differently from those two, he is given a personality and supposed to be presented as a protagonist. I actually don't think that Vaan is that bad a character in that he does serve the purpose he's meant to within Final Fantasy XII. However, as far as like the power fantasy goes and the player wanting to kind of imprint on the character, I do find that Vaan has a tendency to come off as whiny and irritating rather than positive, which is the energy that he's supposed to be bringing. And so for that reason, I do understand why he's not liked, and so to kind of put him up against like the likes of Squall, Zidane, Ramza, etc., he's nowhere near any of those guys. And I would definitely not say he's as strong as Squall or Terra either. So I think we're going to have to put him in C tier, and I think that's probably fair for him, right? So then we move on to Final Fantasy XIII and Lightning. By the way, a lot of the footage that I'm going to use for Lightning is going to come from Dissidia, because for some reason YouTube is very strange about using Final Fantasy XIII footage. A lot of people really like to put Lightning at the top of all kind of power creep lists when it comes to Final Fantasy, and I kind of love that for her, but I want to try and keep this list grounded in terms of why I like these characters or dislike them, and I genuinely think that Lightning is a very well written character. She goes through a wider range of experiences, emotions, even just within Final Fantasy XIII itself, and I think that that gives her a lot to root for. Lightning from a design perspective is also a really great character. She's fairly simplistic compared to a lot of other characters on this list, but she also was a supermodel for Louis Vuitton and Prada amongst other things, and crossed over into the real world in ways that a lot of characters could only dream of. And she's just stood the test of time. The Blazefire Saber is pretty iconic. She's done very well within sort of games and other media outside of Final Fantasy. She's just a very likable character. Well, I certainly think so, at least. I know a lot of people like to put Final Fantasy XIII's cast of characters towards the lower end of the list, and I can understand why they'd say that, but Lightning in particular, I definitely say, is a shining example of one of the best characters from the FF13 franchise. Is she as good as Zidane, Ramza, or Cloud? No, I don't think so, but I would put her above a lot of the others, so I'm actually going to put Lightning in A tier. I think she's very well written. I do think she gets away with it because there have been a lot more games that feature her than a lot of the other characters on this list, but that is part of the reason that she's up in that list. She's just had more time to blossom than a lot of the others. Final Fantasy XIV, much like Final Fantasy XI, doesn't really have a protagonist, and yet it likes to push a particular character as the protagonist. And I don't agree with this, even with the character they've chosen to represent Final Fantasy XIV, which is a very strange thing to say. Now please don't get it twisted, I adore Y'shtola. Y'shtola is a fantastically written character. She's lovable, she's serious when it counts, but she has all the sass that she could possibly need. And I have a lot of time for her, but she's definitely not the protagonist of Final Fantasy XIV. If anything, if any of the characters or the NPCs in Final Fantasy XIV should be the representative for it as a protagonist, I don't think it's Y'shtola. If anyone, I think it's Alphinaud. Alphinaud is way more present throughout the entirety of Final Fantasy XIV from start to finish, from Realm Reborn all the way up to Dawntrail. Alphinaud is just way more featured as a character than Y'shtola is. But I'd still say that that was incorrect, because much like Final Fantasy XI, the character that's the protagonist for Final Fantasy XIV is you. And so, for that reason,
God, what a
and
loser.
not for any hate towards Y'shtola herself, because I love Y'shtola, she's going in the bottom tier. And the only reason for that is because she's featured as a protagonist in a game in which she's not one. Moving into Final Fantasy XV now, Noctis is a character that I feel had a lot more potential than we got as payoff, but he's still a very good character. Of course, when we were first introduced to Noctis many years ago, we were introduced to him as the protagonist for a different game entirely. It was supposed to be Final Fantasy Versus 13, which then morphed into Final Fantasy 15 over the course of time. And I think that with the troubled development that Final Fantasy 15 had, especially with the way everything ended and us not really getting the full ending and having to read it in a book, we never got to see Noctis' full potential. Noctis' relationships with other characters is really intriguing, and I do like Noctis from a design perspective, and a lot of people actually like Noctis more than you might think. FF15 in general is actually one of the most popular Final Fantasies out there, probably due to its release timing. It's been forgotten a little bit more over the course of time, certainly over the last few years, but at the time of its release, Noctis was exceptionally popular, and I think his design and his low-key outfits and the way that he looks is a big part of that. I definitely wouldn't put Noctis in C tier, or certainly not D tier, but I don't think that he's up there with a lot of the greats out there, so I'm gonna say he's pretty solidly in B tier. Which of course brings us to the newest member of the Final Fantasy protagonist family, Clive from Final Fantasy XVI. Now, I'm sure I'm not alone in having opinions about Final Fantasy XVI, whether it be its pacing, whether it be the fact that it's not really a Final Fantasy, which is still an argument I've never fully understood. But I think there's something that we can all pretty much agree on, and that it's Clive's a pretty great character. I think because we get to see so much of Clive's life, from his youth to his young adulthood to him being older as a character, the storytelling methods present in Final Fantasy XVI actually do a lot to aid Clive as a character, and they flesh him out beautifully. Design-wise, Clive is very good. Obviously his voice acting is extraordinary. We all know that Ben Starr does an amazing job with Clive, and it's made him a household name, amongst obviously all of his other feats, but Clive, just as a character by himself, does stand well on his own. It's just a shame that the said can't be said for a lot of the rest of Final Fantasy XVI's cast, because a lot of them don't get to see their full potential, probably in sacrifice for aiding Clive's character development. But that all being said, I think the fact that Clive kind of ate everybody else's character development in Final Fantasy XVI did serve him very well, and for that reason I would argue that he is probably up there as an S-tier character, and I'd be curious to see if anybody disagreed with that. I'm not sure if he'll stand the test of time the same way that characters like Cloud, Zidane, and Ramza have, but I think he could, even if the game he comes from doesn't. So yeah, taking a second look at this list, I'm pretty happy with where I've placed everybody. I'm pretty sure that judging by the way other people would look, I think a lot of people would put Warrior of Light lower, and I totally understand why, even if I wouldn't. I think a lot of people would probably put Terra higher, and I think a lot of people would put Shantoto and Ishtola higher, but I have my reasons as to why they are where they are on this list, even if it's nothing to do with their actual characterization. There you have it. That's my tier list for the protagonists of Final Fantasy. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, especially for characters I have not put on this list. And watch this space, because there's another list that needs to be made to mirror this one, and I'd love for you guys to be involved.
Oh shit.
I should be putting that list on my Discord server, which is linked below, and I encourage you to show me how you would rank the antagonists of Final Fantasy.
So
and we'll be making that video next week, but in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. I haven't posted to YouTube in quite some time, as other platforms have kind of bulldozed me, but I think that I could really get into making more tier list videos, not just for Final Fantasy, but for other franchises as well, and so I'd love to hear your comments on what else you'd like to see done like this. Thank you once again, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Over the past 3 decades, there have been literally hundreds of Final Fantasy games released, re-released, remastered, and remade. Some of these are now regarded amongst the best games of all time, while others have been there to keep the fanbase engaged or as a way of building out the ever-expanding universes of subseries such as Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy XV. But even though so many games have been released, there are still countless others that never got the chance. They were either cancelled during early stages of development as the idea was stress tested and found wanting, or much closer to the intended launch as problems were encountered that could never be resolved. Such instances almost always lead to a lot of discussion and speculation amongst members of the community about what unfinished projects may have looked like, and how they may have performed. Because while some of them may well have flopped, what if there was a hidden gem somewhere in there that just needed a bit more care and attention? It can therefore be fun to imagine what it would have been like to play a Final Fantasy game that doesn't exist, but could have. And that is why we wanted to go over every known cancelled Final Fantasy game, because there are plenty out there, and there may even be some that you may not have been aware of. So why not sit back and relax as we kick things off with a rather unorthodox game based around a fan favourite mascot, Chocobo the Battle. Chocobos are perhaps one of the most iconic creatures in the Final Fantasy franchise, appearing in nearly every single title under its umbrella. And as Square looked to explore how they could expand their portfolio of properties associated with Final Fantasy, creating games based around the adorable mascot made a lot of sense. It saw Square explore numerous ideas for games outside of their traditional genres, and one of the most intriguing experiments in this regard was meant to be a fighting game called Chocobo de Battle. The plan was for the game to be Square's first foray into the arcade gaming scene, with a PlayStation release also considered. And to go alongside with the notion of pushing into genres outside of the traditional, instead of it being a 2D or 3D fighting game like Street Fighter or Tekken, where specific characters square off against each other, the uniqueness of Chocobo de Battle was meant to come via players controlling characters who were riding chocobos. And while few of the intended fighting commands and combos were ever revealed, some footage was shown that depicted a mechanic where chocobos could fire missiles at one another. In terms of visual presentation, Chocobo de Battle employed a behind-the-camera view rather than a profile view seen in many other classic fighting games. But like most of its contemporaries, the roster was planned to contain a mixture of characters and chocobos. But amongst this already unusual concept, perhaps one of the most curious aspects of the game were its intended controls. As if it wasn't already bizarre enough, instead of using a standard stick and buttons, the arcade version of Chocobo de Battle was designed to operate using motion controls. This would have seen players move their hands over a blue motion-sensing board using certain gestures to maneuver their characters and execute specific actions. Perhaps because of how ambitious this project was, Chocobo de Battle ended up being cancelled. When speaking to us, Hironobu Sakaguchi shared that the initial objective was to create a game that celebrated the impact of chocobos, but after reaching a certain point in the game's development, they took stock and realised that the concept of chocobos fighting against each other was perhaps not the best way to do that, especially since they don't even have arms. But even though the game never materialised, the notion of celebrating chocobos did still manifest through games like Chocobo's Dungeon and Chocobo Racing. Now, Chocobo Racing itself turned out to be a very competent kart racing game, and for many years there were calls for it to be franchised itself. Releasing in the late 90s, Chocobo Racing saw Square attempt to capitalise on the kart racing craze that was taking over due to the initial success of Super Mario Kart and subsequent games like Street Racer, Wacky Wheels, and Diddy Kong Racing. The premise was very similar, but instead of Chocobo de Battle, or indeed the Chocobo Racing found in Final Fantasy VII, where players rode chocobos, here, players selected from Final Fantasy mascots, classes and characters and raced in more traditional modes of transport. This meant, alongside chocobos, players could also choose from a Moogle, Bahamut, and even Squall. The game itself was competent, and the issues people had, such as track design and controls, could have been ironed out with subsequent releases. But the game remained dormant for many years. That was until E3 2010, when Square Enix announced a new Chocobo Racing game called Chocobo Racing 3D that was set to be released for the Nintendo 3DS. There was a degree of excitement about this, but nothing more was ever learnt about the game. And in late 2013, Takashi Tokita, who directed the original Chocobo Racing, shared that the game had been cancelled. He revealed that the reason for the cancellation was that Chocobo Racing 3D was just not of a high enough quality to justify its release, and that it had been developed for the wrong demographic, adults instead of children. Tokita also, quite interestingly, shared that the project was being handled by someone else, but that if he had been put in charge, he would have made sure that it came out. A decade later, Chocobo Racing did then receive its long-awaited successor in the form of Chocobo GP. Tokita was again not involved in a leadership capacity, and the game was panned upon launch for numerous reasons, with one being the overly aggressive monetization strategies Square Enix had chosen to employ. Compared to Final Fantasy 1 and 2, which have been remade and re-released countless times, Final Fantasy 3 can sometimes feel quite isolated, but that wasn't meant to be the case. Despite releasing numerous high-profile video games throughout the late 90s, Square had been crippled from a financial perspective by the dismal box office performance of The Spirits Within. To try and turn the fortunes of the business around, additional revenue streams were explored, and it was for this reason that Square entered into a dialogue with Bandai about porting older Final Fantasy games to their upcoming handheld console, the WonderSwan Color. After numerous discussions, Square then signed a deal that saw them commit to releasing their 3 8-bit Final Fantasy games on the upcoming system, and they were planned to be remade from the ground up to take advantage of the system's capabilities. The original Final Fantasy subsequently released as a launch title on the 9th of December 2000, with Final Fantasy II then releasing a year after. Due to their success, the deal was then expanded, and Final Fantasy IV was re-released on the WonderSwan color towards the start of 2002. But the remade version of Final Fantasy III never materialized. According to reports, the game was in a playable state, but Square had delayed publishing the game for undisclosed reasons. Towards the start of 2003, it was then rumoured that Bandai had even purchased the rights to publish the game themselves, but as production of the WonderSwan Color had ceased by this point, with the handheld system having not managed to perform well enough against Nintendo's offerings, Bandai also decided not to push forward. Hiromichi Tanaka later shared that whereas remaking the first 2 Final Fantasy games, and indeed Final Fantasy IV, was quite straightforward, replicating the process for Final Fantasy III was not. The issues came from how much content was crammed into the original game. When Final Fantasy III was produced for the Famicom, the team had stretched the memory allocation to the absolute limit. Every single one of those audio and visual assets was then needed to be recreated for the WonderSwan Color version. If they wanted to keep everything consistent across Final Fantasy I, II, and III, there just wasn't enough storage capacity for them to make that a reality. Even if there was though, the other challenge was around manpower, as they would have had to assign people to recreate those assets, and there just weren't enough people available. Final Fantasy III then suffered a similar fate when it was considered for re-release on the Game Boy Advance. Every single 8-bit and 16-bit Final Fantasy ended up being released on the Game Boy Advance, the only exceptions being Final Fantasy III and Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. But even though work was complete on Final Fantasy III Advance, just like it was complete on the WonderSwan Color version, similar problems were encountered, and the game ended up being cancelled. After suffering from years of development hell, Square Enix decided to just focus on producing a full-on 3D remake of Final Fantasy III that could leverage the technical capabilities of Nintendo's upcoming console, the Nintendo DS. And upon launch, the Final Fantasy III remake proved that a 3D remake of an old Final Fantasy game could not only succeed, but do so in spades. And due to how well it had been done, and the nature of the game that had served as the benchmark, production for a remake of Final Fantasy IV started with immediate haste. After the release of the Final Fantasy IV remake, many fans assumed that Square and Matrix Software would turn their attention towards producing similar remakes for Final Fantasy V and VI. But when everyone reconvened, they had a rather different idea about what their next foray on the Nintendo DS should be. Instead of continuing to dive into the past and attempting to modernize an older game, there was a belief that the knowledge gained from working on the 2 remakes could be applied to create something original, a first true Final Fantasy spin-off, and would have been a considerable
easy work. He's getting cops say pummeling whites is cool? Wait, what? What's going on over here?
This is actually getting insane. It has now been a full week since the most open and shut case for the LAPD has ever been put on their desk, and they have still refused to press charges. It seems like to me that this dude is going to get away with trying to send a man to his maker because he was disrespected. In fact, Rajah Jackson has a new job. Another promotion has already hired him. Are we just going to gloss over this? I'll tell you what, I'm not going to. This channel's not going to. And I'm going to keep shaking the trees until this man is charged. This is absolute insanity, and I cannot believe... What are we waiting for? By the way, the man who was on the receiving end of his poor impulse control and his friends and family are asking for this guy to be arrested, so what are we waiting for? Let's get into the full story after a super quick word from this video sponsor. Huge shout out to this video sponsor, Outskill. Getting rich in 2025 is actually way simpler than most people think. You don't need years of experience or a fancy degree from Harvard that leaves you in debt. You can actually start earning in just a few weeks. Whether it's a high-paying job or you just wanted to launch something on your own, AI isn't just helpful anymore, it's required. Nearly every job today demands AI skills, as chances of people who are skilled with AI is 130% more than the rest. Worry not, I have good news for you. This weekend you can join a 2-day AI Mastermind workshop by Outskill, the world's first AI-focused education platform. By attending 16 hours with expert mentors, learners from Outskill have built and shipped over 100 AI projects, all with zero code and working revenue models of 3K to 4K. Now, this training normally costs $895, but I've partnered with Outskill to give away 1,000 free seats exclusively for my viewers for just the next 72 hours. That's nearly $900,000 worth of training for completely free. By the way, it's rated 4.9 out of 5 on Trustpilot, and that's highly credible. What makes it different? Well, firstly, it's just 16 hours short commitment, which is best suited for someone with a busy professional schedule. You also get free lifetime access to Outskill's exclusive paid AI community to grow alongside 5,000 plus AI first professionals. And also their AI learning dashboard is superior, seamless to navigate, which enhances your overall learning experience. With over 10 million people having attended this training in the past year across different industries, and now it's your turn. During the 2-day live training, you'll learn 10 plus powerful AI tools, prompt engineering, automating your workflow, and building AI products without code. Also, if you sign up now, you'll get exclusive bonuses worth $5,100, a prompt Bible with 3,000 plus high-impact prompts on day 1, a roadmap to monetize AI on day 2, and a personalized AI toolkit builder only if you attend both days. Clear your weekend. It's happening this Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on both days. I've got my entire team attending this. That's how valuable it is. Limited seats available and they're filling fast. Grab yours now via the link in the description. P.S. Join the WhatsApp community to stay updated before the big blast. Danger! Raja Jackson rebounds from nearly taking the life of Sicko Stu, signs with a new wrestling promotion. He's out there signing deals while Stu is in the hospital recovering from having his face caved in. This is America, folks. I'm telling you, if things were reversed, if things were a little different, this guy would already be in jail. Let's start the night off by taking a look at the 3 biggest stories Friday, August 29th. Well, let's start with this. Raja Jackson has already found a new wrestling promotion, despite brutally attacking a fellow wrestler, Sicko Stu. Absolutely wild. Danger Danger Pro. Apparently, in a bold move, indie wrestling company Danger Danger Pro books now infamous son of Rampage Jackson, #Raja, for an upcoming appearance this week. Now, is this just quote-unquote good promo for them? Well, I would never have heard of them otherwise. Okay. But it got them 200 likes. And trying to profit off another wrestler almost losing his life in the ring by booking his attacker for heat. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves. This might be one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen in recent independent wrestling history. Shame on y'all. This is the dumbest effing thing I've seen this year. Read the room. The F is wrong with you guys. The fact that this post has more comments than likes literally tells you everything you need to know. I mean, they're getting absolutely buried. How are you going to pay him when no one shows up? Doing damage control in the comments is hilarious. Not all publicity is good publicity if no one comes to the show. I mean, then they're like, we're sold out every show this year, 4 times a month or more. Okay. Seems unlikely. Seems like, why would you hire this guy? Why would anyone at this wrestling promo want to work with him? I never comment on any post for anything, really. But I came out of the shadows for this one. Holy frick. I will actively avoid any content, any match, any t-shirt, and any wrestler involved with your company. I don't care if it's John Cena, Kenny Omega, and Bret Hart have a triple threat match in whatever backyard you hold events in. I will actively be protesting it. Is his opponent accountability? This is gross. Based. Excellent comment. I mean, this is great. People, Well, by the way, again, I will correct people. Every time I talk about this, I see people in the comments and I see people on Twitter and X and whatever, although I hardly ever use X anymore. By the way, if you want to interact with me, join the Discord. In particular, join as a member. Members can message me directly, but I do participate in both the free and paid side of Discord. Both links will be in the description. And don't forget, I think when this video comes out, it'll be the last day to enter to win a free gaming PC from Meta PCs. All you have to do is be subscribed to this channel. And also, you can get a bonus entry by subscribing and tuning in to Quartering Live, which is a daily, totally different show with co-hosts that I think you really love. And we're almost at 10,000 subscribers, so best of luck to everyone there. Now, here's this article from Dallas. Why hasn't he been arrested yet? Pro wrestler Stuart Smith, known to fans only as Sicko Stu, is now awake and communicating. Doctors reportedly said that Smith's recovery will be very long as he continues to deal with severe head trauma and other injuries sustained during the attack. Stewart is resting since he sustained severe injuries to his head. He is currently conscious and able to talk and will have difficult recovery road ahead, his brother posted to Facebook. Now, here's the thing. Some online commenters have accused the LAPD of dragging its feet despite the blatant, terrible video events of the attack. Smith's wife, Contessa, has launched a GoFundMe campaign to help cover the medical bills and lost income during his recovery. The fundraiser has already surpassed $200,000 as of Friday morning. Support from fans and friends and wrestlers worldwide. And by the way, his medical bills would probably be more than that. Stuart Humphries dropped $15K to beat out Mr. Beast. I don't know who that is. That's a wrestler? I don't know who that is. It's not the photographer, I can tell you that much. Well, it seems unlikely anyway. Wrestling. Oh, is it Hornswoggle? Is that who it is? I'm not totally sure. Forgive me, I'm not totally sure who this guy is. Anyway, maybe that's the promotion? I don't know. I get confused. Sorry. For now, Smith remains hospitalized. No arrests have been announced at the time of the publication. Raja's father has returned to live streaming on Kick, the same platform where his son live streamed his crime. Kick has also not responded. Well, Kick did ban him. That's all they should have to do. You know, they wanted publicity. Islam Makchagov, who don't care, coach claims Sicko Stu provoked Rampage's son, and it's his fault. We're still doing this. Javier Mendez, the longtime coach of UFC lightweight champion, has spoken out after the attack of Rampage Jackson's son. He said he just wanted promotion. What happened was not right. That wrestler, in my opinion, from what I saw, looks like the cameras are rolling. He took an opportunity to get camera time, Mendez said. So who knows what he was thinking? Maybe he said, well, this is Rampage's son. Let me get some play here, blah, blah, blah. Let's get it going like that. Well, sure. The soda can thing was that, and that's why he apologized. Like, he very famously apologized not once, not twice, but 3 times, and Raja Jackson accepted that apology. So there's none of this is, none of this is true. Javier Mendez blames Knock X Pro Wrestling organizers for the poor handling. It's everybody's fault, but Raja. It's everybody's fault, but Raja. What could he possibly do? He's a young black man, so he doesn't have any responsibility or accountability. So it's got to be everybody else around him. That's what the media is saying. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he should be in jail. But why isn't he? Well, because society doesn't care. Society does not hold people like this responsible. The organizer shouldn't have put him in that situation. Okay, sure. Now, the wrestler who urged Raja Jackson's attack has now been fired. Pro wrestler AJ Mana was fired and is no longer affiliated with Knox K Pro Wrestling Academy after his involvement in the attack with Raja Johnson. So this was the guy that was telling him, go give him his receipt. You got to give him his receipt. Go give him his receipt. And the incident, of course, ended with Smith being hospitalized and the LAPD opening an investigation. Knock X Pro has also been dropped as an affiliated school with the WWE ID program. Mana invited Jackson to the event and was filmed on Jackson's live stream urging him to give him a receipt. after an incident where Smith mistook Jackson for a wrestler and hit him with a can of beer. Now, I think it was a prop can. But again, professional wrestlers, be careful who you trust. No one is watching out for you. This is the guy telling him to attack him.
Shit, you fucking give him his receipt. Remember what a receipt is. Give him that fucking receipt, bro. Tag his shit. If you got a fucking problem with it, I'll fucking run out there. Tag his shit, bro.
He's gassing him up, telling him to attack him. Now, again, it is still Rajah Jackson's fault. He should still be arrested. How about this? Sicko Sue's brother shares major health updates saying, why hasn't Rajah Jackson been jailed yet? People are like, well, nobody's asking. By the way, KnockX Pro Wrestling Academy is now hemorrhaging students after Rajah Jackson's incident. Well, because they're no longer affiliated with the WWE, and that's why people do it. They want to get to the big show. So if you can't get to the big show, you know, you moron, there are morons on both sides of it. You're all morons. You have a simpleton's understanding of the industry and has almost been lost today because someone thinks they're so effing smart. So this wrestling school ought to be shut down. That's from Jim Cornette discussing KnockX Pro. It's done. Everybody's leaving. Everybody wants out of that wrestling academy because it's going to be stained forever.
Damn.
Everybody's asking, where is Rajah? How do they let Rajah Jackson out, even on the spot? His family wants to know why he hasn't been arrested. Nobody knows, other than, well, nobody wants to hold him accountable for trying to take that man's life.
Get him in jail.
This guy
bro.
lost his job. I got a call from an effing job. We saw the TMZ video. You're an accessory to an attempt on somebody's life. We got to let you go. I can't effing wrestle anymore, Mana said. So his wrestling agency says that he's an accessory to a horrible crime. Why hasn't the LAPD come out and said that? The whole thing is a horrible, embarrassing mess for everyone involved. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do make sure you leave a like on it. If you haven't yet, subscribe or follow down below. We'll talk to you again real soon.
What the fuck happened to comedy podcasts? Let's see.
Comedy podcasts used to be a place to laugh, hear silly stories, and forget about the news for a while, but now many of them sound more like political talk shows with jokes sprinkled in. And during the 2024 campaign trail, they benefited from this immensely. We saw countless comedians interviewing politicians, asking them about policy, personal beliefs, and what they do for the future of the American people. Their views skyrocketed, reaching levels of success they had never seen before. But politics is a tricky game. It's easy to cash in and quickly boost their numbers, but then they get pressured to criticize these same politicians they platformed when they aren't delivering on what they promised.
They'll DM me and be like, you see what your boy's doing? You voted for this. I'm like, I voted for none of this. He's doing the exact opposite of everything I voted for.
Now it seems like some comedians are backed into a corner and the fans don't know how to feel. Today we're going to talk about the problem with podcast politics, how it has negatively impacted comedy, as well as some of the worst offenders. But to understand how it got so bad, we must talk about the guy who arguably started this trend in the first place, Joe Rogan. The word comedian is not the first thing that comes to mind when describing Joe Rogan, but he is a veteran in stand-up who has been performing for nearly 2 decades. But it wasn't his jokes that earned him the worldwide influence he has today, it was his podcast. The Joe Rogan Experience originally featured an interesting and dynamic mix of guests, scientists, historians, UFC fighters, philosophers, comedians, authors, actors. It was seemingly boundaryless. Joe was naturally curious and he let the conversations flow for hours without any structure or forced topics. One episode could be 3 hours of absurd stories and inside jokes. The next could be a deep dive into the mysteries of space or the limits of human performance. And yeah, sometimes politics got brought up. Rogan identified himself as a left-leaning centrist in the 2010s.
Yeah, I think socially I lean more left in terms of like welfare and things along those lines, and you know, obviously this protected status is driving me crazy. This thing that Trump's doing with children that were born in this country or born in other countries and then brought over here as children, and then they're talking about deporting them. That drives me.
Yeah, that's
that kind of shit. And the hard right version of that is despicable. These people that I see online, why didn't they apply for citizenship? Oh, who knows? Maybe because they're 13.
He even once said he would never have a politician on his show because he understood they'd never be as authentic as his buddies.
I've had requests from all of them.
Really?
Oh yeah, Biden, Warren.
How do you resist that?
Because I have my friends. I'd rather talk to my friends.
Yeah, I know.
But everything changed during the 2020 pandemic. As the entire world was asking deep and complicated questions about this worldwide issue, Rogan's podcast was a daily listen for millions of people trying to make sense of the chaos. From there, his go-to topics started shifting, less about DMT trips or primates, and more about lockdowns, mandates, vaccines, and government overreach. He more frequently hosted doctors, scientists, and journalists whose takes often clashed with the mainstream narrative. By episode 1520 of JRE, Joe was completely on board with leaving Los Angeles and moving to Austin, Texas, believing that LA was a powder keg ready to explode and everyone should escape while they still can.
When are you moving to Texas?
At the end of the month.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm out of here. This place is
That's
gonna
crazy.
blow up. This place is gonna sink. Watch, as soon as I leave.
And this move was a major transitional moment. Texas had much looser COVID restrictions and general distrust of big government. This consciously or subconsciously put Rogan in an environment where his skepticism was the norm rather than conspiracy. And whether or not he truly adopted right-wing philosophies, leaving Hollywood's liberal entertainment industry for the heart of red state America symbolized a step towards a conservative identity. Now, Joe did remain a pretty neutral guy. He would constantly recognize alternative arguments to any issue, but he did take a firm stance against the mainstream narrative about the pandemic.
There's a disease that kills some folks, and there's a disease that, in the beginning stages of this pandemic, thought was going to be far more severe than it turned out to be, and they never adjusted. That's the problem. It's still not good. You know, you don't want to catch COVID, but the vast majority of people who get it will be fine.
This made him a hero to skeptics who felt silenced, and a villain to those who saw him as spreading dangerous misinformation. To Joe's surprise, these news outlets like CNN and MSNBC fought back. They often zeroed in on him, criticizing his opinions and his guests. And even though he did not want this, Rogan was perceived to be a political voice of the conservative voter, and his circle of comedian friends got looped into it. During this same post-pandemic stretch, Rogan's influence in the comedy scene was reaching new heights. His podcast had become a more powerful promotional platform than Saturday Night Live, where comedians would double the size of their fan base after they became a part of his sphere of friends. This has now been dubbed the Rogan Sphere, and most people associate comedians Brendan Schaub, Ari Shaffir, Bert Kreischer, Tony Hinchcliffe, Andrew Schultz, Tim Dillon, Theo Vaughn, Tom Segura, Shane Gillis, and a few others with him. That influence became even more tangible when Rogan opened his own comedy venue, the Comedy Mothership, in Austin, Texas. The club quickly became competitive with iconic coastal clubs like the Comedy Cellar and the Comedy Store, with the funniest comedians in the industry popping up at the Mothership whenever they were in town. Rogan's move to Texas during the pandemic also inspired his buddies Tom Segura, Tony Hinchcliffe, Shane Gillis, as well as countless other aspiring comics to the city. For some, it was about escaping the higher costs, restrictions, and maybe political policies of Los Angeles and New York City. For others, it was about planting themselves closer to the erupting comedy scene spearheaded by Rogan. Comedian Mark Maron seems to think Austin, Texas is now just a breeding ground for hacky political comedians.
I think that it's so effectively tribalized at this point. It really comes down to material. It's like whatever they represented in terms of policy, it's not a stretch. It's like they won. Trans people are frightened. They have no ability to get health care anymore, and they're afraid of being alive and have no freedom left. So that's done. When do you stop with the jokes? And like immigrants, okay, well, they're being ripped away from their homes and they're all terrified. And okay, so that's done. When do you stop with the joke?
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to pick on the vulnerable and the marginalized, but I mean, they're down.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
they're down.
Why do you got to keep hitting them? Unless you're a hack. Now there's a question.
Joe Rogan became the blueprint for a new wave of comedians, proving you could skip Hollywood's gatekeepers, build a massive audience through podcasting, and get filthy rich. Plus, his willingness to openly question mainstream narratives showed comics that having strong political opinions could be just as powerful growth as telling jokes. Now, many in his orbit are blending comedy with cultural commentary, but not in short, punchy moments moments on stage and rather long, drawn-out weekly conversations. And we saw just how much political influence these podcasts had during the 2024 presidential campaign, where we saw the likes of Tucker Carlson, JD Vance, Elon Musk, and even Donald Trump sitting down and having conversations with these comedy podcasters. Now, these comedians weren't really challenging these politicians on their policies, but rather giving them an open platform to pitch themselves to the millions of Americans. And oftentimes, the host would agree with their vision for America.
We should just say that illegal aliens are not counted for purposes of congressional representation.
Yeah. I mean,
Democrats would call that racist, but it's just common sense policy.
Well, especially if it's been shown that you're manipulating it by moving more people to these places, and even if they're not legal citizens and they can't vote, it still counts as congressional seats.
Correct.
That's kind of crazy.
Which is fine, but this is where that interesting nuance comes into play. These comedy podcasters talk and speak like the common man. They develop trust with the common man through their platform. You'll often see in their comment sections people claiming that this is so much better, more transparent, and honest than the mainstream media. But these comedians are multi-millionaires who are arguably much closer to the politician than the common man. So hosting primarily right-wing politicians starts to look like an endorsement rather than a neutral discussion. Then again, Rogan, Andrew Schultz, and Theo Vaughn all admitted that they attempted to have Kamala Harris on their shows, but apparently her team denied and or made special requests like not allowing certain questions to be asked. Rogan specifically expressed multiple times that he wanted her on his podcast, but he wanted it to be the same free-flowing, open conversation that he had with Trump. And I think even the most hardcore right-wing person would agree that Kamala Harris probably should have went on Rogan's podcast, and we would have got to see how biased or unbiased Joe Rogan truly is. Because Joe claimed to be neutral all the way up until the end, until he ultimately endorsed President Trump the night before the election. The great and powerful Elon Musk. If it wasn't for him, we'd be effed. He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Trump. And after Donald Trump won the election, it really seemed like these comedy podcasts had a major influence on the result, which, as you can imagine, probably feels empowering. Like, I bet none of these guys ever thought that their jokes would lead to impacting an election that will be remembered for the rest of human history. But with that kind of influence comes a tricky reality. When the person you celebrated doesn't deliver on everything you championed, it leaves you in a tough spot. How do you address it without undermining your own credibility or alienating that audience that agreed with you? Because Trump promised these podcasters that he would end wars around the world, and they've only gotten worse. He promised that the cost of living, groceries, and the economy would rebound under his tariff system, and that has only gotten worse. And the icing on the cake was him brushing off the Jeffrey Epstein case as if it was some irrelevant side note, acting like Donald Trump wasn't friends with or barely even knew the man who ran a global sex trafficking ring amongst the world's most powerful people. Trump's hypocrisy put these comedians who championed him in a strange position. Do they call him out the way they would any other politician, or do they sidestep the issue to keep from alienating the audience that still supports him? And in the case of Andrew Schultz, he was quick to deny and denounce everything Trump is doing despite endorsing him just 10 months ago. Andrew Schultz's podcast Flagrant has transformed from mostly silly banter to long-winded rants that feel more like informal TED Talks that lack research. He leans into the image of being well-read and politically sharp, positioning himself as a commentator and a comedian. Like when he spoke with Professor and Daily Wire collaborator Jordan Peterson about the woke era and how he goes about crafting a story.
I want to make a film. I'm really excited, but I'm really getting into story now and the power of story. I think we have a biological reaction to stories in the same way that we have to music. Like, I notice when I'm hanging out with my friends that I've known for decades, we will retell the same stories that we were all a part of. And every single time our eyes light up and we get goosebumps and we laugh and we get excited and the stories morph and change.
There was a well-earned win right there, all right? I was doing everything. I was dodging left and right. This guy fucking, got his ass right at the end. Woof.
We get to like relive them in the same way when a song comes on that was a song you absolutely loved or you were going through something, you get to feel all those like emotions again, like you tap towards them. Like even when somebody tells a story in a group It's different than when someone has like a hot take or a premise. Everybody shuts up. And all of a sudden we're like around the campfire for some reason.
Now, obviously, everyone loves a good story, and most of what Schultz is saying is accurate, but he has a special way of drawing out these simple ideas to make them seem like intellectual epiphanies.
I love Schultz
What are you
epiphanies.
talking about?
Schultz epiphanies are my favorite.
Yo,
He repeats his statement.
that's crazy though. It's true. They're doing drugs. I think this is gonna sound weird, but like I think drugs are almost like a necessary component to dealing with life in the way we have to live it. You know what I mean? Like I don't think you need to do drugs if you're in Alaska. Yeah.
Andrew is the type of guy who finishes your sentence and now that's his idea. Schultz's character arc was amazing, from a likable, charismatic guy to someone I'd leave mid-conversation due to boredom and ego-driven narcissism. Then again, a lot of fans love Schultz's depth. I'm just over 11 minutes in and this is mind-blowing. Schultz is passing up setups for great jokes in order to have a sincere and serious philosophical discussion. Meanwhile, my boy JP is making comedy both subtle and overt. I love it. Schultz's moral view on political and social issues mimicked that of your classic New York City guy. Socially progressive due to growing up around all different races and cultures, but clashes with modern internet liberals who dislike any version of a white guy making fun of minorities.
Don't go with that pull-out method with Latinas. You on a Latin girl's stomach, her belly button just opens up and takes that shit in, dog. Like hungry hippos in there, dog. You gotta on her back. That's why they call them. Now, guys.
But Andrew's justification has always been that comedy is comedy and nothing is off limits.
What we're not gonna do is sit here with our tucked between our legs, apologizing on the podcast for jokes, okay?
But over the past few years, his takes started to shift, not necessarily in a way that makes him fully right-wing, but enough that his audience noticed he was aligning more often with conservative-leaning guests, laughing alongside their worldviews, and treating their ideas with far less pushback than he once did. It was subtle at first, but eventually the political banter became a regular part of the Flagrant brand, to the point where now, when they have an actual comedian on the podcast, you'll see comments like, "A normal interview and hangout, finally," or "Finally, a non-political interview." However, it's hard to imagine anyone would deny the opportunity to interview the president. So when Andrew Schultz and his co-hosts got the opportunity to have Donald Trump on Flagrant, it felt like years of slowly introducing their thoughts on policy was justified, when in reality, these politicians are just trying to capitalize on their audience. The interview wasn't the usual back and forth roasting or playful pushback Schultz built his career on, but rather a calm sit down where they let Trump tell his story with minimal interruption.
We were close to a deal for getting rid of nuclear weapons. It would be so good.
For all countries or just Russia?
We were talking about Russia, ourselves, and China.
Oh, wow.
We would then bring everyone else into it.
And at the end of the podcast, he wanted to congratulate Trump as a peacemaker and praise his policies.
I would be remiss to not even bring this up. You've said that you want to have peace in these places, not just Russia and Ukraine, it's obviously the Middle East. I know that is a very tough task. I don't think maybe you get enough credit for what you accomplished and your administration accomplished with the Abraham Accords.
Iran was willing to do a deal. I would have had a deal with Iran within 7 days after the election. I actually said, let's delay it till after the election because I was sure we were going to win the election. But things happened. You know, COVID happened.
Of course,
it
there's
was
a lot of things going on.
Look, it was a mess.
But still, I think it's something that a diplomacy out in that region that hasn't existed prior. Is that something I would imagine that would be at the forefront of this next administration?
But once Trump got into office and didn't fulfill pretty much any of his promises, Schultz backpedaled his support.
I believe that about Trump. I believe when Trump, everything he campaigned on, I believe he wanted to do. And now he's doing the exact opposite thing of every single thing.
I don't know what he's done. It's easier for me to believe you wanted to do all these things if any of them were happening in the way that you said they would.
To that point, like there'll be people that like they'll DM me and be like, you see what your boy's doing? You voted for this. I'm like, I voted for none of this. He's doing the exact opposite of everything I voted for. I want him to stop the wars. He's funding them. I want him to shrink spending, reduce the budget. He's increasing it. It's like everything that he said he's going to do except sending immigrants back. And now he's even flip-flopped on that, which I kind of like. But he's like, oh, well, we kind of need the people working in restaurants and we need our farmers.
I believed in Trump. Andrew Schultz, ladies and gentlemen. Being tricked by politicians at your big age is actually actually insane. Not only did you vote for this, you helped campaign for it. He and his team put on tinfoil hats and addressed everything they could to reinforce that they were just as progressive as ever. They talked about the Middle East, the military-industrial complex, Epstein, banking, and elite bloodlines that inherit wealth.
Do you think they sat him down? They were like, listen, we're just going to kill everybody in your family.
It's so calloused and terrifying.
Like, I wonder if that's possible. I wonder if there's a conversation where it's just like, hey, listen, your family is currently on a trip to Aspen, and here's the flight, and there's 5 hours where it's going to be in the air, and it might fall out of the air. So we're going to have you do these certain things, or else your family will really never be able to fly again because we'll just shoot the plane out of the sky and then just said it's another Boeing issue.
And despite his disappointment, Schultz tripled down that he doesn't actually think it's Trump or any elected president's fault that we don't see positive change around the world, and that it's actually a small, powerful group of shadowy figures that have enough wealth and influence to control everything. But much of his audience felt Schultz was trying to save face after his eagerness to platform the president and believe all of his campaign promises. And one of the biggest problems with drifting into politics is even when it seems relatively normal or casual, like with comedian Theo Von, conspiracies start to form that are incredibly hard to ignore. Before the last election cycle, most people wouldn't have thought Theo Von was any kind of political animal at all. He spent most of his career as a relatable hillbilly from Louisiana that everyone could get along with, sharing stories like an old-timer at the bar.
I grew up around some real crazy poor white people. They had a dude in our town, no arms, used to fight everybody. You know what I'm saying? He'd get you in that lurch. He would catch you with between his chin and his chest. He would snack you like a snake.
He had a way of making even the most ridiculous stories feel familiar, like you'd heard them from a cousin at a family barbecue. His offbeat tangents and self-deprecating humor made conversations feel easy and humble.
It'll cure Down syndrome, bruh. I beat it.
You beat it.
There was a lot of rumors in my town that I beat Down syndrome.
Well, that's inspiring, man.
That's how I felt when I heard him, because I didn't start him.
Which is why when he started hosting more high-profile guests, it never felt like a departure from his style. It just meant the dynamic was funnier. Instead of a local comic or small-town character, now it was celebrities, athletes, and billionaires sitting across from him, getting pulled into the same meandering conversations about childhood memories, weird neighbors, or awkward life lessons. And Theo act 100% the same no matter who his guest was. That disarming approach made it easy for guests to open up in ways that they might have avoided with a more traditional interviewer.
This movie made 10 cents this weekend, and you'd want them to take the billboard down. You drive past the billboard like, the billboard's like, here's the bomb, the movie's a bomb. You know what I mean?
You're up there at night in your Batman costume, just painting over it with a big one of those.
To put it simply, Theo made every guest, no matter how high profile they were, normal. Because after all, fame is a construct. We are all human. Now, the peak high profile guests is politicians. And as we got closer to the 2024 election cycle, Theo Von started bringing on people like J.D. Vance, Bernie Sanders, Tucker Carlson, Libertarian, Thomas Massie, and even Donald Trump. But
one more win, baby. One more win until I'm Masters. One more win until I'm Masters, guys. Come on. Come on now. One more win, baby. One more win till I'm Masters. Oh, here we go. One more win. Let's go. Let's go. Woo! One more win to Masters. One more. One more win to Masters. Come on. Woo! One more win to Masters. One more win to Masters. One more win to Masters. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. I'm gonna call my boy Mason real quick. One more win to Masters this season. Come on, man. Come on, man. Gotta get that good luck. Gotta get that good luck. Gotta call my boy Mason. All right, on Labor Day. I need to take a piss so bad. Fuck. Ooh. Let me call my boy up. Call my boy up to give me that good luck. Give me that good luck, brother. It's a tradition. It's a tradition, me and my boy. Come on. Answer the phone. Come on, someone answer the phone. Son of a bitch. Come on, come on. Come on, we got this. We got one more win. One more win. Come on.
Please leave your message.
Oh, fucking asshole. Come on, come on, come on. I got one more win. One more win. One more win. Come on, one more win. One more win. One more win, baby.
Your call has been forwarded.
No one's answering the phone that I got. I need a good luck. I need good luck. Damn, why is everybody being a hater right now? Come on, give me the win. Give me the win. I do need to take a piss though. Be right back.
Like most other podcasters, Theo was able to successfully get some liberal guests, like Bernie Sanders.
They don't even take those factors into consideration when they're making all of these, you call to get your medical bill. It's a nightmare. And I'm not even sick, I'm just somebody trying to get to the bottom of the...
All right, and why does that happen?
Because it's loopholes. They don't want you to get paid.
You got it.
Theo gave the vibe of being a simple, genuine guy just interested in having a conversation about what's real. But that same approachable vibe also came with some criticism, because Theo wasn't well versed enough in policy or history to challenge his mostly right-wing political guests. It created an environment where talking points were not challenged, making him nothing more than a propaganda tool. And you might think that's crazy, but it's these critiques that spiraled even deeper. Theo became a target for various conspiracies. One of them being that Theo Von belongs to an aristocratic and well-connected Polish family, and that his dad participated in propaganda for the Contras, a controversial guerrilla group that terrorized towns in the 1980s, and that his half-brother Roland was allegedly assassinated after a probe conducted by the DOJ and FBI. Then again, a lot of the idea that he is helping conservative propaganda seems to fall flat considering his outspoken support, specifically him crying in support of Palestine. You see, these comedians shifting to politics is a double-edged sword. On one hand, discussing these issues is important, and comedians like Theo might actually be better messengers, able to reach people who'd never watch the news or read policy reports. On the other hand, once these conversations happen, the comedy takes a backseat, and the audience starts judging them like any other political figure. One day, you're just the normal guy who likes to make people laugh, and then suddenly you're surrounded by a bunch of conspiracy theorists who want to pin you down as some sort of puppet or shill. Then again, other comics are expected and maybe even encouraged to talk about political and social issues, like Tim Dillon, who has long been praised for joking about everyone on the political spectrum, never letting one side off the hook. But after a recent secret meeting with the current administration, some fans are worried that he might have sold out for real. While most podcasters have a guest to interview or a co-host for every episode, Tim Dillon is the type of comedian who
One more battle for real. Come on, it's on the stream. I need that good luck. I'm gonna get that good luck. I got one more. Come on. On stream, let's win. Let's win, please. So I can be done with this fucking game, please. Fuck. One more battle for real. Come on, it's on the stream. I need that good luck. I'm gonna get that good luck. I got one more. Come on. On stream, let's win. Let's win, please. So I can be done with this fucking game. One more battle for real. Come on, it's on the stream. I need that good luck. I'm gonna get that good luck. I got one more. Come on. On stream, let's win. Let's win, please. So I can be done with this fucking game, please. One more battle for real. Come on, it's on the stream. I need that good luck. I'm gonna get that good luck. I got one more. Come on. On stream, let's win. Let's win, please. So I can be done with this fucking game, please. Fuck. Come on, come on, come on.
Rant by himself for hours on end, and with absolutely no structure, the rants would go in crazy directions. But he started to gain popularity whenever he talked about political and social issues. He was always open about his interests in the elites of the world, how they would get their money, and how they would use it to make their way into the center of American power.
The only thing interesting about New York is the massive amounts of money. That's the only thing left about New York, and that's fascinating. And I love money more than anyone, and I love the people that make it. So that's my Pokemon, is New York socialites. I want to catch them all. Though that's the way I love money, and I love the rich because they don't love me and never will. And it's so purifying. It's clear. It's clarity in a world of mishmash and nonsense. I love it.
He often defends the sadistic behaviors of powerful people and corrupt corporations because the absurdity of hearing him do it makes for some shocking moments.
Now I'm against.
I just created a Target registry.
Yeah.
Because I know they give you a 15% discount.
Oh, sweet.
If you have certain amount of things on there.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just created it, and then I put the expensive car seat that I was.
Oh, perfect.
And it took like $50 off of it.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, and then we have the $120 gift card.
Right.
And so we only be paying $160 out of pocket.
Wow.
So I was like trying to should I get the little bit cheaper one? I'm like, nah, I don't know, because it has like an easily removable thing, so you can wash the
That's a blessing.
the cover and everything. And if we don't get any accidents or anything,
It should
can
be
last
good.
over 10 years.
Dang, that's awesome. Sweet. No, that's a big up right there.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit because I've been looking at car seats, and there's one like $100 cheaper, but it doesn't have all the little bells and whistles,
Yeah.
So I was just like,
You feel more secure with this one.
yeah, and it looks nice.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Oh yeah, that does look nice. Oh yeah, that does look really nice.
This is the other one I was looking at. Let's see.
And this was the $100 cheaper one.
Yeah.
Well, we'd have to buy another one later on, right?
We would, but what's it called? In 10 years, it might be likely that we would get. I mean, I'm not sure. You know, even the little fender benders, they tell you to replace it.
Oh,
You know, so that's why I'm like, it still might happen. You know.
Yeah.
The thing that I liked about the there it is. So this is the other one.
Oh, cool.
It has
And this one's $100 cheaper?
Yeah.
Oh, dang. That might be the one then.
This one, it also it has a little footrest.
Yeah.
And so they're able to face backwards longer. But the thing is, Reiko didn't like facing backwards because she can't see anything.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, it's safer, but then the kid's bored. You know?
I mean, that's cool too. I think maybe that one's the one that we need.
Okay, I'll see how much it costs.
Oh, with the registry discount?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't have the little booster thing, but like I said, the chances of it lasting for 10 years is
very slim.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's probably better to get the better the other one. We can replace it a lot easier.
Yeah, the only thing is, like I said, it doesn't have the thing where you can easily take off the cover and wash it really easily. You have to unlatch certain things. But I mean, it's not like Rico's not a baby anymore. But you know, the blowouts and they poop and they pee in the car seat
Yeah.
and stuff. So I was trying to think of what would be easier, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm still gonna weigh it out and see. And,
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. That's awesome that they give you a discount though.
Yeah.
That's really cool. An hour till we head up to get the food, right?
My dad went to Home Depot.
Oh, so he's just gonna get on the way back?
He said he might come and pick you up on
Okay. It's just really just if you wanted the half and half, they could do it all one. And they might just have that be mandatory.
Yeah.
That was really the only thing. I don't have to go. It was more like if he has trouble ordering it.
Well, do you know what you wanted?
Yeah, I just do the probably the al pastor burrito. Yeah, the normal one. Yeah. All right, let's do this, guys.
In the but let me tell you right now, it's a stunning estate. It's a beautiful property. It's an iconic property. It's a nice place to be. I am not for, but if we went down the list of places to be assaulted, I mean, the Franklin scandal, these kids were getting sacrificed in barns in Omaha. They were eating at Waffle Houses. This is Palm Mother Beach.
Tim has even expressed that he would do everything he can to be close to them and experience the good life.
Come on, baby.
Like a lot of people are like, oh, Tim Dillon's in LA. He's going to sell out. Yes, I am here.
Come on.
And I have my gaping wide open for a multinational corporation.
Let me ascend
to
Let me ascend.
But
Let me ascend to masters, please.
selling out to a multinational corporation, it may have been the US government. Then again, this wouldn't be much of a surprise considering he wasn't exactly shy about his morally questionable past, as he told stories about his previous occupation, selling predatory loans leading up to the 2008 housing crisis. He would shamelessly tell people to take out loans with the promise of massive returns in the near future, and not even the banks would question these shady deals.
The amount of tax-exempt retirement accounts that you put your money in with that $80,000, you make it work for you. You do not sink it into a house. Yes or yes? So the reality is this. We're taking the biggest loan possible. Debt, Mr. Pappas, will set you free. Now sign this piece of paper for Christ. And at that point, you and your wife are crying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we sign papers, then you go die.
But how do you get the loan from the bank? They're giving them away.
Back in the day, what are we doing? We're talking about now or back in the day?
No, back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, I go to bank. I said, Kelly, we got one.
Now obviously, predatory loans were incredibly destructive and evil for countless American citizens, but the way Dylan talks about this corruption is what makes his fans like him. He's fully aware that the game is rigged and you have to participate in it to survive. He constantly talks about conspiracy theories and how all of this selfish behavior will likely lead to a societal collapse. One of his most epic rants was on JRE, where he perfectly describes the impending doom we all face.
The system will collapse, but I don't know if we'll see it. And someone will come in and go, yeah, these elections are all fake and it doesn't matter anyway. Why do you need to vote? Here's a coupon for a chicken sandwich. And people go, I like chicken. And then, people just go, they don't care. And then you go, there'll be Netflix, and there'll be Domino's, and you'll sit in your house, and they'll say, well, you can't drive today because of the climate. And people go, yeah, it's Tuesday. Can't get in my car because of climate. And you'll sit there, and they'll feed you poison, and you'll watch TV. And a few people will riot, but very few, because most people will be pacified by the goodies, which they'll still probably have. And, the leader will come on and tell, they'll be like, hello, everyone. And you'll go, hey, and it'll be a celebrity. It'll be someone you know, and they'll say a couple of things and be like, it's not that bad, is it? And they go, no, it's not that bad. And they'll feed you the propaganda, and you won't remember when you were free, and you won't remember. And most people will be fine with that, but me and you will be dead.
Tim's comedy positioned him in a way that makes him pretty much bulletproof to criticism. He's extremely socially aware. He gets the irony of being a wealthy comedian ranting about the struggles of the lower class, but instead of shying away from that contradiction, he leans into it. One minute, he's the everyman calling out corruption and greed. The next, he's mocking you for being broke and laughing about the perks of hanging around billionaires.
The biggest regret of my life is that I don't work in an insurance company in Ohio. You think I like driving this Bentley? It ruins every other car. I'm in a rental right now. It's insane.
That back and forth keeps his audience guessing whether he's speaking from sincerity or pure satire, making it almost impossible to pin him down politically. However, leading up to the recent election, Dylan found himself straying further and further away from being a chaotic centrist to interviewing figures mostly on the right. His biggest guest was J.D. Vance, whom Dylan focused on the housing market and corporations like BlackRock buying up massive amounts of real estate.
BlackRock
Is there a way to calm that down where they're purchasing all and they're driving up the cost of real estate? You walk around New York City, there are buildings that are full of empty apartments because it's money laundering from people overseas that are stashing money, and it's raising the cost of living for the entire city.
Dylan never actually outright endorsed Trump like Rogan did, but his increased political involvement has made it hard for him to avoid political attacks from people that see him, as well as other Rogan Sphere comedians, as right-wing allies.
One comedian who was like kind of in that, Fox, etc. That I tried to interview. His manager told me that he wouldn't do an interview with me because Rogan would get mad at him for talking to CNN. And
that's untrue. That's completely insane.
Okay.
That's completely insane.
Okay.
That is completely nuts. He was afraid of you.
Oh, okay.
He thought you were going to come in and really rough him up or something. There's no such thing as Rogan would be mad at someone for talking. That's crazy.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. Okay.
No.
And this is really how Tim Dillon tends to operate. He views almost everything from this kind of painfully obvious angle, like when he was pretty straightforward why Kamala Harris lost the male voter. You can't go to war with straight white men for 4 years and then ask why they didn't vote for you. That seems crazy. I've made fun of Meghan Markle a lot. I can't go, why don't you think Meghan Markle is watching my special? I just think you have to pick your fights in a better way. Tim likes to remind his audience that people, rich, poor, powerful, evil, or kind, are going to look out for their own best interests. Some people have to get screwed. It just is what it is. He even might take it a step further and say you should be happy about your life because it could always be worse.
Geek civilization is like, I'm bored at work. Don't you think that people in Gaza want to be bored at work? Don't you think they want to be choosing which coffee creamer to use? Sometimes I think I'm too smart to communicate with others, and that I should just sit kind of like the giver. Remember him? Did he even speak? No, he just took it all in. And that's where I think sometimes I am, because I keep trying to communicate with others and I'm at a loss, because who would defend American Express? Who would defend Geico? Who would say that that's the meaning of life? But it is. All these people write about the meaning of life. It really is to work at Geico.
Tim is quite literally the guy who would sell his soul and say, of course I did. What did you think was going to happen? And if you genuinely thought that he was the everyman looking out for your best interests, it's your fault for not seeing the signs over the years. And in a recent podcast, he may have done exactly that. Dylan talked about having a dinner with someone on the inside over a luxurious meal and seafood tower regarding sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
We are going to now, I'm going to tell you about a dinner I had with a member of the administration. I'm going to tell you everything that I know. It's not a defense of the administration. In fact, I think if they do not release everything they have, they are done. And I told them that. You need to release everything you have.
According to Dylan, he was told that any tapes that would leave powerful people in compromised positions are likely destroyed, and that all that was left were downloads that Epstein possessed that weren't connected to anyone in the government. Just horrific videos involving civilians shared by some of the absolute worst people on the planet.
When Pam Bondi came out and said, I have 10,000 hours of evidence, what has been told to me is that is Epstein downloaded. It is not the tapes of powerful people in compromising positions. And the person who told me that said, listen, I'm not saying those tapes don't exist. I'm saying that the person who has that is either a foreign intelligence service, Ireland, is a guess, or a billionaire or billionaires, or they have been destroyed. There isn't a tape of Bill Clinton, a 12-year-old, that Pam Bondi has on her desk.
Basically, these government people said, stop looking, stop worrying. There's nothing there. Throughout the whole rant, Dylan appeared to trust almost every word this mysterious political dinner friend was saying, suggesting that Epstein's partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, never received a plea deal of any kind to give up incriminating information.
No one offered Ghislaine a plea deal. Nobody went to Ghislaine Maxwell and said, give up somebody and we will reduce your sentence. And that could be for a couple of reasons. They didn't want to give a plea deal to that's certainly not a popular thing to do. But it could also be because people didn't want Ghislaine to be like, actually, I have a funny story. People didn't want that. They said, keep your trap shut.
Later in the dinner, Dylan suggested that it would be better for the administration if they let Maxwell testify before Congress, but nobody at the table liked that idea.
A couple of the people at the dinner, again, it was a small dinner, 3 or 4 people, they said that is not on the table at the moment, but it's not possible. Nobody's super jazzed about it. Like, it's been suggested. Like, I thought I had the idea first. I didn't.
Tim Dillon has always enjoyed being well connected, and it's safe to say that he's probably not willing to say anything online that might anger his powerful friends. But then again, Dillon is a comedian. Who's to say he even had a dinner at all? Whatever the case, this didn't keep his audience from jumping to conclusions. I had a dinner with the group that has been lying to us, and they promised they wouldn't lie anymore. Tim Dillon. So effing annoying that we're constantly living in multiple layered psyops. He told us 1,000 times he would sell his soul if offered. Tim is one of the rare cases where his audience actually expects and even wants political content. That's always been part of his act. But some comedy podcasts have stood out as great examples of why you don't need to feed the political machine. A perfect example of this is the podcast Bad Friends, where they believe that political involvement is toxic and possibly career-ending. Podcast hosts Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee have stood out as some of the only comedians who stay away from politics altogether. They mostly focus on personal experiences, gossip, and silly banter. And even if they do lean into political topics or controversial issues, they turn it into jokes, because that's what comedians do. A perfect example of this is when Dan Soder talked about how underage kids are legally allowed to go to bars as long as they're with a guardian.
Local, not a law, but like people just go with it. Minors under this age are allowed to consume alcohol as long as they are accompanied by a parent, legal guardian, or spouse of legal drinking age in Wisconsin. It is a law.
Damn, dude. That's basically like training wheels for booze.
100%.
They're like, hey, I let go back a block ago. You've been blacked
You're
out.
good to go, buddy! Just keep pedaling! Thanks, Dad!
Yeah, dude, Wisconsin would be the state that does that.
100%. But we used to go up there when I'd go with my parents to like Irish Fest, and we go to a bar, and it always felt like we were getting away with something. But the bartenders were like, what are you looking at? One of the beers? And they're like, okay, which one?
How old are you?
I was like 17, 18.
So you're already drinking.
Well, yeah, but never in a bar. If we got into a bar, it's because we knew someone whose uncle owned it, who was just a degenerate blackout. He would just sit at the end of the bar, and he's like, just make sure none of you guys drive, okay?
Now, it's obviously horrible and irresponsible that bartenders somewhere in America are serving children alcohol willingly and knowingly that they're underage, and they could have expressed that and talked about Midwestern government policy or how the mayor needs to crack down on underage drinking, but instead, they just made jokes, because that's really what the people want. Even when Bad Friends mention something political, it's always done in a sarcastic and silly way, like when they talked about vaccines and ICE agents.
We both took the Pfizer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Single shot, that did it.
That is
messed up
fucking
a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all Fauci.
Yeah, it's all Fauci.
Oh, Fauci, dude.
It's Fauci's fault.
What a guy.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? They're making big changes over there.
Yeah.
You're not working for ICE anymore. You're done?
I'm done for ICE.
Okay,
for the
good.
time
Because it's brutal.
That was, when History Hyenas ended, I got a job at ICE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I couldn't take it anymore.
You just couldn't.
Screaming.
It's a lot.
Yeah, just the screaming. At first, I enjoyed it.
You still friends with Stephen Miller?
That's a friendship and a bond that can't be broken.
Okay.
I've known him.
Any opportunity that Santino or Bobby have for a serious political discussion turns into a silly story to make everyone laugh. They recently discussed how many of their podcast peers are straying away from comedy and turning into a straight-up broadcasting network for American news.
You know what makes me happy? It makes me happy to know that this show is still as stupid as it's always been from the beginning, because I see a lot of our podcast pals or people in our sphere that are taking these shows to a level that we don't go to.
Which is what?
Well, they're all having like
They're all, like,
politicians on.
journalists.
Tim got interviewed by like CNN.
Yeah.
I was like, what in the is going on? I just don't think we want politicians on the show.
No.
It's getting a little muddled, right? It's getting a little...
I just think comedy podcasting is entering this world of like news or something.
Yeah.
And people are taking it serious, and it's not.
The beauty of comedy podcasts is that they used to be an escape, a place to laugh, hear wild stories, and forget about the chaos outside. Comedians used to unite us with laughter, and now they're just contributing to the system that keeps us divided. Getting a job on Saturday Night Live is a dream for comedians. Not only can they earn a living writing jokes, but they also get to do it on the largest comedy platform in the entertainment industry. So when Shane Gillis got a job as a writer for SNL in 2019, he was excited to add his signature humor to the show. Then he was fired just a few days later. A 2-minute clip from his podcast destroyed his opportunity to work on network television. But this would be a blessing in disguise, because it actually was the catalyst to him becoming a superstar, and the Comedy Corporation came crawling back for Shane after he proved he did not need them. Becoming a successful comedian is a brutal grind, but before social media, it was 10 times harder. You had to spend years working on material in local clubs that were half empty, praying that one night someone in the crowd had the right connections to get you an opportunity. If you were lucky, after traveling the country doing open mics for years while being flat broke, maybe you'd make a name for yourself to land a 5-minute set on late night TV or a small role in a mid-tier comedy movie and hope they write you a standout moment in the film. The absolute peak of the comedy mountain was securing a job on Saturday Night Live. If you were hired as a writer, or even better, an on-screen talent, it became significantly easier to secure movie roles or sell tickets to stand-up performances. There have been countless iconic and extremely successful comedians that had their careers significantly elevated due to them being SNL cast members. Now, it wasn't impossible to make it without SNL. Kevin Hart and Louis C.K. did just fine despite being rejected from the show. But these days, the pendulum has entirely swung the other way, and SNL is no longer the ideal blueprint for creating a successful career in comedy, as podcasting and social media flip the entire industry on its head. Comedians still have to start at the bottom, doing open mics and small comedy clubs, but now they aren't forced to secure a fan base in the small geographical location that they reside in. They can film their sets and post their best jokes to social media. Those videos will allow them to grow a following independently and allow them to get more bookings across the country. Or they start a podcast and essentially prove their comedy prowess through casual, funny banter with their friends or other comedians. Shane Gillis had already been grinding in the Philadelphia comedy scene for a few years, slowly building a name for himself as one of the funniest up-and-coming comics in the city. He bounced between open mics and small clubs, doing whatever shows he could get.
That's another thing. I've never fought anyone my size. So I'm bragging about being undefeated, but I only fight people I'm definitely going to beat the f*** out of. That's the rule. You never fight a wrestler, and you always fight someone you're definitely going to beat. Like women.
Oh my god.
Along the way, he met fellow comic Matt McCusker, and the two clicked immediately. Matt and Shane had the same sense of humor, the same edgy comedy, and a chemistry that felt like they had been friends since they were kids. So starting a podcast was the obvious move. Shane's comedy style isn't really made for safe, polished,
Gay, and the death of the MMA media. What the fuck is he talking about? Kevin Nash on the rush. Kevin Nash, yo.
Kev, the story that swallowed the wrestling news for the better part of a week was Roger Jackson and that debacle in the ring that we both saw and talked about a little bit too, and the entire wrestling community.
Oh my god,
is
these
talking
fucking
about it with
electric
opinions
Pokemon, man. They can make it so hard for
ranging
me.
From the call for criminal charges to why the hell is someone hit someone who's not a wrestler with a can in the head because they're at a wrestling show. And it begged so many questions in my mind.
It's like I can't even get a shot in
currently. So I thought I'd
That's
ask
fucking crazy.
the professional wrestler that I'm closest
Crazy.
to if they had
Thank
any
God.
answers.
See, I guess I grew up in a different
Oh my
era
gosh,
because
finally. Jeez.
I was one of the last ones that was lucky enough that the Marks were in the crowd and they weren't in the locker room.
There we go.
Like you couldn't buy yourself a spot.
But if you brought, I mean, he was brought, I believe, he was brought there by
a mark,
a worker,
a mark.
And
he had to be, no, he was a mark because he was a mark for the guy's dad.
Rampage Jackson, yes.
Right.
Okay,
there was no reason to be a mark for this guy. He's 0-1.
Right.
So he's a mark for Rampage. He's a mark he's working an indie thing. He's never. These guys have been working indies for 20 years. They haven't broke in yet. If you don't make it in 3 to 5, you're never going to. So it's like.
All right, so here's the first thing. So let's take it one by one. Why was anyone backstage? Why was anyone in the locker room? Right.
Why would somebody
on,
had
get
to
everything
give
you need,
the
brother.
okay to bring a Mark to the fucking
who was running his live stream the entire time. So they thought maybe, the desperation of a lot of these indies, maybe something will happen. Maybe.
No, something did happen.
Yeah,
they were absolutely. They got exactly what they wanted. They got exactly what they wanted. Something did happen.
Now, this was a WWE ID affiliated Knox X Pro Wrestling Academy in Los Angeles. They're no longer WWE ID affiliated, let me say. And as best I can understand, I spent the time today trying to figure out what this is. And as best I can understand, WWE ID highlights, spotlights on a website, some schools. They're down to 4 now with the loss of this one. Sponsored by existing talent, and then it's an indie federation. It's not like a developmental, or they're not running it or in any way really affiliated.
Shit, what a tough fucking
So the worker,
battle.
Psycho Stu, hits Roger Jackson with the can. Everyone knows the story, right? It's a week old. So, but I'm just trying to find out how much, it obviously went too far. How much of this was, it's good, that's good, yeah. Because you do see at one point...
none of it's good.
A worker, well, no, okay, right.
When
but
you can't,
in the minds of an indie federation, that's maybe going to...
No, when you... If you can't get 2 guys in the back to no.
Roger's told...
If you walk into a bathroom and you have to use it, and there's a big fucking turd in the toilet, there's never a fucking time you decide you're just going to sit down and add to it. As soon as that fucking first incident happened, it's a turd. Flush it, be gone, be done.
Right, and so you in the locker room would have said that, would have realized this is
number one,
bullshit.
I would have fucking.
Fuck!
Saying you'll get your receipt.
Fuck my life. God
I would
damn
fucking
it.
have went up to the guy who was gonna do the fucking spot. And
fucking
say,
stupid.
You're not getting in the ring with that motherfucker, are you?
Fuck this game, man. I didn't even have
Meaning
a chance.
You would have told Roger that.
No.
I didn't even have a fucking chance.
Dude, they got fucking pummeled.
Right. Jesus Christ.
The guy laying in a hospital bed.
I didn't have a fucking chance to win the game at all.
You're not gonna. I mean, when you fucking
I need one more
go
fucking
in
match
the
and I'm done
ring
with
and
this
you
stupid-ass
you
fucking
give somebody
game.
your body.
Fuck.
You're giving them your body.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I mean,
the level of trust is.
Give me the fucking win. Let me get over this shit.
And I mean,
So fucking
the
over
best
this game.
guys in the world bust each other open. Let alone a couple guys that work fucking once every 6 months. Like, fuck that, man.
The worker, Andre Joel Hudson, said to give him the receipt.
God damn it. Every fucking time.
Told Roger
Don't
that
touch
before
this
he went
fucking
out.
wall.
Do you think there was any part of this that
That is newsworthy today? No.
That was, well, people wait to hear your opinion. Everyone's given theirs, and those are the opening acts, and here's the main fucking event every week, every Monday morning. Who's at fault?
Whoever
Is
brought
it shared blame?
whoever brought the mark.
Or allowed the mark to be brought, right? Reno Anoi, I always have a hard time with that, let's say. Is heard saying, he's a trainer was a trainer for KnockX, who said, we'll make something out of it after the initial incident in the locker room. And apparently they're saying the reports are that Psycho, after the can, went up and said, I didn't realize you weren't a worker. I'm sorry.
How do you not? Who goes up to anybody?
I don't know, and just hits him. I know
with a can.
I don't know. That's where the stupidity.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you weren't a worker.
Or else I would have just hit you with a can if I knew you were a worker.
Like, what the fuck? Like, what a bunch of it's number one. It's
I get nothing.
The camera. The camera is the culprit. If they're not
because
fucking,
it was being recorded.
because it's being
Fuck,
recorded,
man.
We
this
acted like
guy's
assholes
going
for a
to
little while.
This guy is going to fucking hit him with a can because he wants. He figures the guy probably had a decent setup. It wasn't probably just handheld. Probably had maybe the fucking gimmick like this, you know.
Put your phone in the little holder and walk around with your phone.
Like, oh my God, this guy, and Jackson doesn't look like he's in shape, so he doesn't look like the rest of these fat fucks.
Right.
God damn it!
And he's of color, which I didn't see anybody else that was black in the locker room. So obviously, it's like, okay, this must be somebody.
Fuck
He
it!
looks
What
like
the
he's
fuck is
somebody.
going on?
And I'm sure that he's saying these
What the
rampages.
fuck is going on in this game?
Which, you know,
They're getting every fucking thing they want.
he's
Oh,
trying to
man.
get on the camera.
God,
He's a worker.
God
That's
damn it.
that's what workers do.
They got everything.
And
They got fucking Greninja, double
you
fucking.
should-
Oh my
Are there
god!
criminal charges that are warranted
this
here
game,
for
dude.
the excessive beating? However we got there is how we got there. It's a bunch of this indie shit that we're talking about. But he's in the ring.
Fucking kill
There's someone who's
somebody.
unconscious, and you saw what happened. Is that a
Man.
crime? And we've seen in
Yeah,
the,
I'm
in
okay. I'm
the
just getting
NHL, they've
pissed
talked
off.
about like when
Sorry.
there's too much
Love you.
in a fight. If there's stick work, they talk about filing charges
Fuck,
in the
man.
city. If somebody uses the stick.
There was definitely intent to fucking to do bodily harm.
You cross the line, yeah. Wrestling or not.
Absolutely.
All right.
Fucking
You,
it! I
you
gotta
can't use
fucking kill this nigga.
a wrestling venue as
a justification
Fucking
to
goddamn
Right.
gook.
maul somebody. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know the gun was loaded. I'm on a movie set. Doesn't change things. Somebody still loses their life.
All right. Hashtag Ask Nash. That's how you get to Kevin Nash. Not an easy guy to get to. And he'll answer your questions. That's one way to do it. Another great way is to be right here with us in the house, and you'll see everybody's questions from the 11 Soft Club. ClickThisTV.com. Like, who's our first contestant? Ace Ramon.
Fuck this game.
What do you think of Doug Malo? Pulled Raja off Stu. He stepped in when it was needed, and he looks like he's got a good future. I mentioned that in the pre-show that, like, even 15 seconds of that is brutal. I mean, somebody finally got in there and was like, oh, let's go.
Fuck.
Get off. So,
Give me my
I think big
fucking
ups
head.
to Malo. No?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad somebody pulled him off him, but
Fucking A.
if you're in that organization in the first place, I don't think you got a good future.
I don't got leaf or red.
Which is a compliment.
I don't got nothing.
That's
David Van Boegelen. I need to know what would have happened when you broke in, Kev, if something like this happened. Would Harley and crew kill that kid?
Wouldn't happen.
Fuck this game.
Wouldn't have gone out, right?
No, wouldn't have. Marks weren't allowed in the ring.
There you go.
Fuck this game. I'm gonna fucking kill
David
somebody.
again. Kev, a receipt is something that is delivered.
This
in
nigga
line
had
with
everything.
Stuff that happens in the ring, right? Backstage stuff gets handled backstage, but not in the ring. Good question.
Man.
Is that
Yeah,
true?
I mean, if you ever see that, there's a pretty infamous thing on Instagram where it shows Braun Strowman catch
I can't do shit.
Lesnar with a pretty stiff knee, and once
Fuck.
Brock sells the knee and gathers himself, he fucking gives him a receipt.
He has all the fucking cards in the
shot right to
world.
the side of his head. That's a receipt.
What a
But, like, if
bullshit
somebody was
fucking
fucking
game.
with you backstage or something, you wouldn't hurt them in the ring. If you had a problem with them backstage, you'd approach them backstage.
Fucking so stupid.
Yeah, back. Yeah.
Yes, well done, David. Correct.
Fuck this game,
But
man.
it's like a receipt on top of that. It's like a
Fuck
receipt
you,
to me
nigga.
is only if somebody's is
Handing out wins.
people are gonna hit you. People
the
are
fuck
gonna
is
stiff
going
you.
on?
If it's
Literally can't do
with
shit.
malice, that's when you get a receipt in my book.
What about carelessness? Where does that
Fucking
fall
asshole,
in the
dude.
hole? If you drop someone the wrong way.
See, I'm kind of blessed because I was
Fuck this
I was
game,
like
nigga.
330. I mean, like, I'm not somebody you're gonna snatch and just throw.
Right.
You know,
Can't
so
do
I was kind
shit.
of blessed to that. But I've seen a lot of guys that just get stuck with moves and shit, and it's just like I don't know.
Yeah.
And the immortal words of
You got fucking handed everything to you.
who said it? I think it
Handed
was,
everything to him.
John Candy.
Fucking
no,
hey,
it was
man.
Blackjack, not Blackjack. Billy Jack Haynes.
Every fucking card
It
he
is the
wanted, he
fight
got.
game.
Did Billy Jack say that?
I think so.
I thought he said, "Get your finger out of my ass, Pat Patterson."
I don't know. Billy Jack's in prison, isn't he?
He sure is. Maybe receiving a finger as we speak.
Son, it's time to face it. Your football career is over.
We're here on the grandest stage in American sports, Kirk. And for Russ Holiday, a chance to do something special.
You were showboating and you blew the game.
What a fucking gay ass game, dude.
Yeah, there is a lot of people. Hashtag where is Trump? This doesn't look like Trump to me. Different nose, different ear, different proportions. The only way it adds up is if his face took a beating. So let me get this straight. This person thinks that it's a fake Trump. To be fair, this guy does look like if Baron Harkonnen was the fucking president. So this is the photo from today. He looks decidedly unwell. I think he just looks like a 79-year-old man. President's response to the rumors that he passed away, he says, "I've never felt better in my life." Now, I mean, Joe Biden said stuff like that too. Is it really true? Is it not? I mean, he's been tweeting out pretty regularly. You could say that, oh, well, somebody else wrote those for him or something else like that. So it's hard to say. Looks like Trump has a bump on his forehead, leaving the White House September 1st. The White House is blocked off by police at every angle today. I think that there is a chance that Trump maybe got sick. I mean, he is human. Yes, like people do get sick. Like something like that could happen. When things happen that are uncertain, then I think to myself, maybe there's something that's going on. And irregularity is noteworthy. I hope he's okay. I don't think it's good for anybody if the president dies. I think also if you don't like Trump's policies, you better be ready. You better hope to God that he doesn't die. Because J.D. Vance is just like Trump, except for he doesn't go on long tangents about how somebody is fat. And I think he's probably going to be more effective than Trump would be.
Good evening and welcome to a program devoted entirely to lefties losing it. Let's start the program by hearing from a tolerant, loving and inclusive lefty who is calling on her fellow lefties to shoot their political opponents? No, really, that's what she's saying. And yes, she's got those crazy eyes.
Okay, guys, so I would like to start a new movement called CMAGA. MAGA. Because people like that respond to fear and terror and aggression, not logic and empathy and, I don't know, intelligence. It doesn't work for them. So fear works. So if we all get our guns and use our Second Amendment right and our common sense, at this point this administration is begging us to rise up and revolt. And you see somebody with a MAGA hat, pew pew. That's what we do.
Pew pew.
Just imagine the echo chamber
Hurry
this
up.
lunatic.
Doesn't matter, I already got my shit. Let's see if you're fucking lucky, bitch. Of course you fucking are. Hurry up. God damn, bro. You fucking... Really? Hurry up. Damn, bro. You're wasting my fucking time with your bullshit, bro. Who cares? Oh my god. Damn, these niggas fucking suck.
Hollywood has decided that their next culture...
College campus erupts after base student? What?
Yo, what's up, guys? Got hey, if you go to this school, DM me on Instagram. I'll follow you back. Hey,
what's up, man?
What's up, Myron?
Yo.
So, women's liberation, as we all know, has been a disaster for this country.
Yes.
We taught them how to read. We gave them the right to vote. And we are putting them in college.
I better win this
We're
fucking match.
letting them party for the first 30 years of their life or 10 years of their adult life. I'm a Christian, but I look at the Middle East and I look at Muslims, and they seem to have their women in check. My question is, do we need to bring some sort of Sharia law to America to get our women back in check? What do we do? How do we fix this? Do we need to put them in burqas? How do we get... They're out here, they're dressing like whores, they're killing babies, and they think they're smarter than they are. So what do we do about this?
Let's fucking go, man. We got a smart guy over here, man. I agree with you 100%. Yeah, so I don't think we need Sharia law because I do think, even me growing up as a Muslim, I understand that Sharia law simply just isn't compatible with a Western democracy. It just isn't. But I do think that, this country was founded as a Christian country, and I think we could just go back to Christian ethics, and that will handle a lot of the problems. The problem is that, right, people are misinterpreting the Bible, and, women think that they're equal within the Bible, and we got female pastors and shit, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I think if we can get back to that nuclear family structure, I think that will handle a lot of the problems. But yes, I agree with you that feminism and female liberation has created a host of problems that, quite frankly, women don't even know is going to come back to haunt them later on. They think it's all great to be a slut and have freedom and woo.
They're celebrating the declining birth rate on Instagram a lot of the time, and that's literally the death of our nation. And they're cheering and they think it's cool. Oh, I'm contributing to the declining birth rate. We're all going to die if nobody has kids. If you're smart, if you're high IQ, you need to have kids. The high IQ people aren't reproducing, and that's what we need.
Yeah, and if you look at like Japan and South Korea, like that's where we're headed. Like these countries are declining and they're getting cooked. And like something like I was doing a pod with a buddy of mine earlier, like 50% of the population is 60 or above. Like that is a dying nation, man. So the birth rates are low, and if we don't get the birth rates up with men and women together having strong nuclear families, we're cooked. But we're destroying ourselves. Why? Because women want to be free and they want to be sluts, and that's a problem.
Can we fix the birth rate by just importing a bunch of immigrants from Africa and India? Would that fix it?
I don't think so, man. I think mass immigration is a problem. If we look at like what's going on, like if we look at Toronto, right? It's nothing but Jeets. So it's like, goddamn, man. It's
getting
basically
fake
India.
college degrees.
Yeah,
going to colleges and malls and kiosks and colleges attached to Indian restaurants, literally. But you get arrested in Canada if you speak out against this.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I think they don't have freedom of speech, right?
Neither does the UK.
Yeah.
We're like the only ones left, man.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll let you go. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on, bro.
Thank you. Never forget the 9/11. I
Yes!
think we can all come together on that, whether you're liberal, conservative. Did 9/11.
Yeah.
They are not our greatest ally.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Women Propaganda, guys, go check them out.
Follow me on Instagram, Woman Propaganda.
And we're going to do something later. We're going to do a collab, too. It's going to be lit.
Yes.
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 All right, who's up next? It's the homie right there. It's the homie right there. Collab incoming.
Come on.
WBNN, exactly. All the real ninjas know what that means. WBNN.
What's up?
What's up, brother?
What's up, Myron? I wanted to add on to the Christian virgin thing.
Please do.
Because I was in that same exact situation. The 18-year-old Christian virgin who, and you guys know what I'm talking about. I was in that same exact situation. I was raised Christian. I'm still a Christian, but very religious, and I was taking it very seriously for a long time. I was trying to do the right thing, wait till I'm married to have kids, or wait till I'm married to have sex. And when I was 23 years old, I was looking around at my church, and I was like, oh, wow. None of the girls here are virgins. None of the girls at church are virgins, and a lot of the guys at church are virgins. And so I see you get that question a lot, and it makes sense. But like you said, it's 2025, and there's no virgin women anymore, and a virgin man is going to get taken advantage of. So, yeah, it is ideal to wait till marriage, but it's kind of not an option. I think you're going to get screwed over. I'm 30 now. I caught up for lost times. I went out there and had some sex. But, but there's no other, I didn't even want to. I wanted to wait till marriage, but I was like, it's going to fuck up my life to do that. So anyways, I see you get that question from Christians a lot, and I agree with you. I think you're right. And this is, Christians, I think, are coping and telling.
Muslims too. The Muslims give me the shit about that. All the religions in the book give me shit about this. And I grew up in a Muslim household, so for them, they're like, this is 100 lashes worthy. This is bad. But I tell them all the time, dude, look, if you can be a virgin and find a virgin wife, do it. Go for it. But it's just not feasible advice for me to give that advice to men in 2025, knowing what's out there. Guys, I've seen unspeakable thottery that I can never recover from. And just knowing what I know, it would be evil for me to tell you guys to just stay a virgin and go get these, and go deal with these women, dude. It's I've seen girls do evil fucking shit. Tell a guy that they're a virgin, make them pay $50,000 for their virginity when they're not, or lie to a guy and tell him that I did XYZ, get a hymen surgery to make it look like they're still virgins, or only do anal or whatever. I've seen horrible things. So in good faith of me knowing how women move and dealing with the women, I've interviewed 4,000 girls, been with a bunch of girls. I cannot in good faith lie to the men. I'm going to tell you what's out there. This is how I think you can deal with the problem. You don't have to take my advice, but I'm not going to lie to you guys and tell you be a virgin, be a good Christian, and you're going to find a wife. That's setting you up. That's a cruising for a fucking bruising, man. And then the scariest part with the way the family courts are, not only will you get your heart broken, you're going to get poor. You're going to live out your fucking car. She's going to take you to the cleaners a lot of times, and she's going to take your kids. So it's I can't in good faith tell any man that. Even if, you're the most religious guy, I need to at least arm you with the information so you know what you're walking into.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see you get that question all the time.
Yeah, I get a lot, dude, yeah.
You're absolutely, and I understand the people asking.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I even agree, it is ideal to be a virgin. It's just not, that's just not how it goes anymore.
Yeah, and marriages are optimal. If the woman's the virgin or has less than 5 body count, those have the highest marriage rates, especially if she's a virgin. But
let's
dude,
go!
Nowadays, it's damn near impossible, man. It's just and the scary part is I've noticed this trend as I've been interviewing girls on my show. Girls are losing their virginity younger and younger and younger, man. The guys are still losing their virginities between 21 to somewhere in their mid-20s, 18 the youngest to 21, 22. But girls are losing it in their teens, and I'm what the hell is going on here? So
that's the case at church too. And you'll complain about this to pastors, and there's a lot of weak, I don't know what to call them, feminist or beta male pastors, but they'll give you this advice: women are queens, be gentle, be nice, and just wait for the right girl, God will provide. That I tried doing that. None of that worked. None of that worked. It was Andrew Tate that came around, and I got red pilled I'm 30 now, so I was, there was Sam Hyde and Gavin McInnes and other people.
Nice.
But that's where I found out the truth about women, wasn't it? And I'm still a Christian, but it's unfortunate. I think we got a lot of weak pastors, and they're not being honest and being real with women.
Yeah, and if a guy decides, you know what, Myron, I appreciate your advice and everything, but I'm going to stay a virgin and find that girl, cool. At least I just want the guys to know and have that information and then make that decision themselves. I don't want them to be like, oh, well, I can find her and I don't know any better, and then they get fucking finessed by some fucking thought. Because look, I hate to say it, like, look at Steven Crowder, right? Devout Christian, successful,
man, we got it.
Right,
we got it.
Smart,
We got the Masters.
all these things.
We got the Masters.
Wildly, successful in the conservative media space. His wife was a devout Christian. What did she do? She still keeps his last name, still clouches off his name. She divorced him, tried to destroy his name, tried to take $30,000 a month from him, etc. And she tried to destroy his reputation. She colluded with his enemies at the Daily Wire and Yashar Ali, this fucking loser, and gave this information. She put like a doctored ring cam video when they were having a private dispute and tried to paint it in a way where he was being abusive, and she edited it. Like, what the fuck? And this is supposed to be a devout Christian woman. She tried to destroy this man's life. So this is what awaits you guys a lot of the times with these women. And I just want you to go in with your eyes wide open that even the most devout Christian woman can always reserve the right to become a feminist and a bitch at any time. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, the women at church are. Anyways, I'll get out of here. But
no, I appreciate you saying that, dude. I appreciate you saying that because it's like guys think I'm just like some crazy womanizer, like, and I don't get it. And it's great to hear from someone who's a devout Christian. Like, look, dude,
I'm from the front lines. I saw it all. Like, no, literally, the girls at church aren't virgins, and then the girls at church aren't into the guys at church. Yeah, it sucks. So I don't know. I think part of the problem is we got these pastors just are too scared to call out the women. I don't know quite.
Well, the women are the ones that pay to the church. Like, they're the ones that donate a lot of money or whatever. That's why they kind of like have been cucked out so much. Yeah.
Hey, that was a good one.
So,
anyways, thank you for what you do. Keep up the good
thank you,
work.
brother.
It's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's start with the fascinating revelations about how much the Democrats are paying mindless, unprincipled influencers to post anti-Trump, pro-Democrat propaganda. Crap like this.
Mr. Trump is out here trying to delete the Department of Education, and teachers are getting cut left and right. Our classes are packed, and we have like zero funding.
Trump says America first and then guts the most American institutions we've got.
This is signaling preparations to possibly deploy the United States military against American citizens in Chicago.
Every Republican is currently in Congress voting to destroy the lives of millions of Americans.
So authentic, so much conviction from Lefties Losing It. Not really. According to a new report, a secretive dark money group tied to the Democratic Party is paying online influencers up to $8,000 a month to disseminate left-leaning talking points. Among those named is Olivia Juliana, the Gen Z activist who spoke at the 2024 Democratic National Convention.
As the saying goes, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
And the Democrats thought she was just the influencer to bring young, disaffected men back into the Democrat camp.
I spend a lot of time on college campuses. And I spend a lot of time with
So
young
glad
men.
I'm fucking
I
done
love
with
young
this
men.
game. I was so
I
pissed
love
off. I
frat
lost
guys.
twice in a row. One,
that
twice
little
back
campaign
to
didn't
get back
work
into the
out
ranking
so well,
mode.
no matter how
And
much she loves young men.
Fuck.
Yep, the Democrats are so
Finally,
desperate to
after
engineer
all
support
that time,
that they are
all that.
paying influencers up to $8,000 a month to post lefty propaganda. They are trying to create the illusion of grassroots
So
support,
glad I'm
just
fucking
like they
done with this
tried
season
to
of the
engineer
Masters
fake news,
and
Russian
Pokemon
collusion hoaxes, and those
TCG
weird
Pocket.
polls
Dude,
right
I was
before the
having-
election that were all
I was
wrong,
having bad
all
luck.
wrong
I
in the
lost
same
2 in a
direction.
row on that
And
last
talking about
rank game.
polls, let's check
And I
in
was
with
getting
CNN
pissed the fuck off.
polling
I won
expert
2
on
back,
how
and I
well
was
the
like, I better win this
Democrats
fucking
are
third one in a row.
How are they going,
I'm gonna be so
Harry?
fucking mad. And I won
Bad,
the third one.
bad,
Thank
bad.
God.
What are you doing? Oh my
Over
goodness
it.
gracious!
Over
what are we
this
talking about
season,
here in
over the
terms of
Pokemon
big
TCG
party
game. I ain't gonna
registration
play
changes
fucking
in the
ranked no
key
more
swing
because I got
states?
the
Let's look
Masters.
at the
That's all I
key
wanted to
4
do.
swing
That's all I
states that,
wanted
in
to
fact,
do.
do keep track
I
of
got
registration by party. Look, the Republican Party is in their best position at this point in the cycle since at least 2005 in all 4 of these key battleground states. We go out to the Southwest, Arizona. How about Nevada? Republicans haven't done this well since 2005. Oh, my goodness gracious, at this point in the cycle. North Carolina, I couldn't find a point at which Republicans were doing better at this point in the cycle. It's at least this century. It probably goes way back in the last century. And Pennsylvania, very similar. Republicans doing better at this point than at any point. At any point this century, at least as far as I could find.
I should have given the lefties a trigger warning before that last clip. For the rest of you, perhaps a cold shower or a cigarette after hearing this.
When it comes to party registration, Republicans have made massive gains compared to 8 years ago. They are in their best position in these key 4 swing states. But at this point, as I said at the beginning, the Democratic brand is about as good a position as the Cracker Barrel rebrand. It is bad, bad, bad for the Democrat.
That shit pissed me the fuck off.
Bad for the Democrats. And one of the reasons the Democrats are struggling is their soft on crime philosophy. They don't care about law and order. They don't believe in properly punishing offenders.
I fucking did that, team. That was me. Nick fucking Fuentes explodes.
What's up, guys? I have another Nick Fuentes clip for you. I have 2 clips of Nick going off on immigration, in particularly the Somalis arriving to our country. This was posted by First Class Clips on X. The caption is, whose idea was it to dump low IQ, violent, tribal Somalians in Minnesota? Somalia isn't even a country. We are destroying the best white areas of America to protect these brown and black problems. So let's watch this.
Whose idea was it to dump Somalians into Minnesota?
Somalians?
Somalia isn't even a country. Trump has bombed Somalia 70 times this year. It's 3 different states. It's Puntland, it's Somaliland, it's Somalia. They're fighting off ISIS and Al-Shabaab, and there's a civil war. Whose idea was it to bring these clannish, low IQ, violent gangsters and thugs worshiping Islam into utopia, into the white utopia known as Minnesota? Whose idea was
Minnesota's
this?
kind of different.
We don't want
I wouldn't even go to
here.
Minnesota.
Whose decision was it? Who looked at Minnesota, its healthcare system, its public services, its education system, its infrastructure, and said, we need a major Somalian enclave right here in our playgrounds and neighborhoods? It's just like the Afghans and the Pakistanis and the Muslims in the United Kingdom in Europe. It's just like the Venezuelans and the Salvadorians in New York or in Texas or California. It's just like the Indians and the Chinese in Seattle and Portland.
It's just like them.
You look at our beautiful country, national parks, skyscrapers, natural and man-made wonders. You look at the country that we had. You look at the videos of Detroit, of Chicago, of New York, and LA. Whose idea was it to invite the whole world here? And they come here, and these people have all kinds of problems. They're rude. They're inconsiderate. They don't assimilate. They don't like us. They don't respect us. They don't see themselves as Americans. They help each other out at our expense. They have disdain for us. They feel entitled to this country, the sense of arrogance of some of the foreigners, and those are the best ones. The worst ones are violent. They're rapists. The worst ones are bringing the drug cartels. The worst ones are shaking people down, taking over apartment complexes. The worst ones are smashing your windows and stealing your bags. The worst ones are mugging you at gunpoint. This is the situation we find ourselves in. It's also the native black population, too. They'd fit right in with the outsiders. Go figure. Imagine that. And what is happening is that the white people are being victimized, and it seems like there's nothing we can do about it. To do anything about these brown and black problems would be racist. And that's what they are, brown and black problems. Carjackings, that's a brown and black problem. You don't get carjacked by a white guy. You don't get carjacked by a woman. You get carjacked by a brown or a black man. Okay? These are brown and black problems. We can't do anything about them because they're racist.
Yep. You don't get carjacked by a white man. That is so true. We always hear this is why we choose the bear thing, but they never ask what color was the man. What color is the man? If it's a white man, I choose the white man over the bear. If it's a Somali man or a bear, maybe I would choose the bear, for real. Anyways, another clip here. This is Nick talking to Andrew Tate. This is a little bit older, also posted by First Class Clips. Whites should be white supremacists. I'm not saying that, he's saying that. You can agree with him if you want in the comment section. Please leave a comment. Whites should be white supremacists. We created the world. Why are we being bossed around by women, called racists by minorities, neutered with the Holocaust museum trips? Let's watch this.
I mean, to blame. You have to place the blame because the problem is we are being told by outsiders that we're racist and we're being disarmed by these things. And I don't know if it's even necessarily blame. Like when I look at immigration, you can understand why desperate people want to come to America and Europe. Of course they want to come here. We have better stuff. They don't like the Constitution. They don't like America. They don't like liberalism. They like welfare. They want housing. They want health care. And you get it. But there is clearly a reason why they're coming in. And it is true that white people are a big part of it, but there is also an active subversion. And like the first political act is to decide who's on your team and who's not on your team. And if we could say that the immigrants are not on our team because they want to come here and we don't want them here. And if you could say that the liberal white people aren't on our team because they're letting them in, you could also say that there's subversive elements like the Zionists or like liberal Jews, like Soros and others, that are poisoning the well, poisoning the culture, bringing in the immigrants. And it's really more about identification. But I do agree, there is a spiritual crisis. It does derive from, like Andrew said, white people are afraid of their own shadow. We're afraid of ourselves. We're afraid to say white supremacy because whites did dominate the globe for 500 years and did subordinate all the people and oppress all the people. And now we're sort of voluntary. It's like Andrew said, taking the back seat and saying, yeah, come on in, let it all happen. And so to the extent that we have to blame ourselves, we need to have a spiritual revival to say, white people can be active too. White people aren't going to be bossed around by women. They're not going to be told they're racist by minorities. They're not going to be neutered with these guilt trips, Holocaust museums and slavery museums and this and that. And I think that's why it's better to say white supremacy, even if it's not technically, I don't think people are inherently better or worse, but it's like, yeah, we're the shit. Yeah, we run shit. We went to the moon. We built everything. We created the world. White people are afraid to say that because it might offend the other. But the other's not afraid of offending us. They don't give a shit. And it's going to be South Africa, like Andrew said. If it's bad now, if there's grievance and resentment-based politics against whites now, what'll it look like when we're in the minority and they're running the government, they're running the institutions? They're going to kill us. They're going to kill us, take our shit. They're going to realize they messed up, and they're going to try and bring us back. That's what happened in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. It's kind of interesting because if all the white people, if black people say we want a black-only town, cool. If the white people say we want a white-only town, there's a mental breakdown. And the reason there's a mental breakdown is because people know that that white-only town will be a place everyone wants to go. So they'll say, why are we not allowed in? That's the reality of it.
Amen. Based, Andrew Tate. So true. Yeah, nobody minded when the blacks got together and created a black-only town. That's happened a few times in America. It was praised by the media. And now these 40 white people who bought land together in Arkansas, that return to the land movement going on, they're being called all sorts of names, evil, Nazis, white supremacists, all that stuff. Everyone's terrified. Everyone freaks out. 40 white people bought a house together. Oh no, guys, the Klan is taking over the country. So it is impressive. It is amazing how threatened they are by white people wanting to live in a white neighborhood and actually taking steps to make that a reality. They freaked out. The women and the libs are trying to sue these Arkansas whites who bought land together. So anyways, guys, let me know what you think. Are white people going to wake up and take this country back? How much longer are white Americans going to deal with this abuse? How much longer are we going to take this, guys? Come on, wake up, white man. No more watching sports ball. We have a country to save. We have our own lives to save. How are you watching football or baseball or whatever it is? How do you watch that while our country is being destroyed in real time and we have no money and we're broke and we can't afford to have a family anymore? I don't know. Anyways, that's a tangent. I do not approve of watching sports. Leave a comment. Let me know if you agree. And Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. We're out here reacting to Nick Fuentes clips, covering the news. We're also reacting to Myron Gaines clips, Andrew Tate clips, having a great time going after women and minorities, having a lot of fun on the channel, so please subscribe, leave a comment, and thank you for watching.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We've got some breaking news just now on the central economic policy of this Trump administration. In a huge blow to the White House and its agenda, and a big win, I would say, for everyone else, a federal appeals court has just ruled that Trump's sprawling tariffs are unlawful and invalid. Of course, the president has been obsessed with imposing his willy-nilly tariffs on Americans. In fact, it has been the central plank of his entire economic agenda. Now, it has been wildly unpopular. It's polling underwater. It is costing consumers and corporations billions and billions of dollars by the day. It's stopping the Fed from cutting interest rates by driving inflation. It has, on the whole, been really bad economic policy. And most of the discussion of these tariffs have been focused on that. But there's also something about these tariffs, which is that from the jump, they've been pretty clearly illegal. I mean, think about it for a second. Can the president just by himself create tariffs that raise hundreds of billions of dollars with zero congressional input? These tariffs are a violation of the law that they purport to use as the justification, and a violation of the spirit of the Constitution of a country which was quite literally founded on the belief the executive cannot unilaterally just impose a tax without representation, specifically tariffs. Now, the Trump administration has claimed that its tariff regime and the reciprocal tariffs that it has, and those on China and Mexico and Canada, that those are an emergency measure under a 1974 law, and that made it legal. Well, when this was challenged in a district court, the district court judge said, no way, this does not comport with the law. So the Department of Justice, acting as Trump's lawyer.
Fucking bullshit, man. 50 shots?
In Chicago. Everybody gotta get down. Everybody gotta get down because they shoot. Everybody down.
Man, chill out. This is a football game?
These kids are running.
Oh my God.
They shooting. We can't have no fun in Chicago, man. No fun, man.
Yeah, bro.
This is terrible. I'd have thrown a goddamn flag. This y'all neighborhood.
This ain't y'all neighborhood.
This might be over with, because I gotta figure this out, man.
It's at a football game. Look how tore up that track is, man. So I just want you guys to look at the condition of that school. It's got a bunch of people in the community there trying to enjoy an event, and like, look at the condition of this track. So if this was a safe community and all these members of the community felt safe and could put money into the community, I'm sure this place would be a lot nicer. But you have knuckleheads and Neanderthals shooting, making the community unsafe, where children gotta run, everybody gotta duck and cover at a freaking football game. Everybody suffers. The innocent people suffer, the community suffers, and everything else around it suffers. So when y'all talk about, oh, these communities are, that with all this violence and poverty is toe up, you gotta realize that cycle of violence is keeping y'all in poverty.
Chicago,
and everybody's affected.
Chicago.
This is so crazy, bro.
So over the weekend, guys, 35 people were shot. 5 people just died in Chicago over the weekend. And people say they don't see what... They're saying that they don't see the violence that's in Chicago. Look what this guy said on Fox today.
I was in Chicago, D.C. earlier this year. I'm in Atlanta right now, and I've not yet stepped in one single pool of blood. So I'm not sure what America and what major city Luke is referencing, and I'm not sure, even when I'm in New York City, what he's referencing.
Are you kidding?
And so with that being said...
Wait a minute. Okay, so you haven't stepped... Whoa. So you haven't stepped in a pool of blood. Okay, I'll be honest with you. Neither have I, thank God. But a lot of New Yorkers have, and a lot of people in Chicago have. You have seen the crime rates, right? I mean, in Chicago alone, you want to talk about Chicago? 52 people shot this weekend alone. Last weekend, 26. 7 people killed. That's a pool of blood. That's 52 pools of blood. Maybe you didn't step in it, but I tell you, the crime rates and statistics are facts. Why are you saying that you haven't? I think that's I think that's irresponsible.
Wow,
That's a
it's
problem.
crazy because I bet out of the 52 of those people that died, majority, if not all, are probably black youth. And we got a black guy on TV denying the crime. Chicago has been the murder capital of the U.S. for 13 years straight. And you got black people on TV denying crime. What the hell is wrong with y'all?
Yeah, so we got liberals outside of Chicago saying Donald Trump does not need to bring the National Guard to Chicago right now. I saw a couple pictures of, this 25-year-old young lady died in Chicago this weekend.
Wow. Damn, life cut short.
Y'all just look at it's some crazy
Wrigley
stuff.
Field at the baseball field.
Bro, it was going crazy in Chicago this weekend.
Whoa.
It's been going crazy.
There appear to have been some kind of large gathering overnight. Chicago police confirming that 5 people were shot near 36th Street and Cottage Grove. Officers responded to the area around 1 o'clock this morning, I should say. Police say while they were on scene, officers heard gunshots and moved to the area of gunfire. That's where officers, they say they found multiple victims. And
this is one function, guys. Just want to let y'all know. This is one party.
And moved to the area of gunfire. That's where officers, they say they found multiple victims, and several ambulances and paramedics were called to help those who were shot. The victims' ages range from 17 to 36 years old, and we're told the 17-year-old is in critical condition. Citizen app video from the scene shows a large police presence near Ellis Park as Chicago police investigated. Police say that there were 4 guns that were found in the area, and a person of interest was also taken in for questioning.
I want y'all to know something. Illinois has strict gun control laws. You need licenses. That's not stopping these heathens, these criminals from having guns. These teenagers are dying, being killed. We have a huge issue in America. Like, did y'all know that 28% of Gen Z Americans were aborted? I want to know how much percent of people have died from violence.
You know what's
of teenagers?
You know what's the main killer for 30 and under?
In black people?
Yeah, for
Isn't
black
it?
males.
It's murder, isn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's our number
Hey,
one
bro,
cause of death.
people, not just in Chicago.
That is crazy.
In the hood, period, say, if you make it to 20, you an OG.
That's insane. You want what's crazy? I had a frat brother from Chicago, actually my anchor on my line. He is actually a police officer in Chicago. He is in law enforcement. He is out there trying to stop this. He lives in a black community. I remember when we got to college, he said, where I'm from in Chicago, we don't fraternize with the white people. It's just us. And it's violent. I remember he used to be like, why are you always hanging out with them white people? I said, what you mean? The same as hanging out with you. He said, no, you like them more than us. All right, brother, calm down. But he's from Chicago. That's how they act. So it's like, if y'all know that they don't even go into the white communities and the crime is bleeding into their communities and it's affecting our communities at the highest rate, how can y'all get on TV and be against this? How? Where's BLM? Do Black Lives really matter?
Hey, they had a protest right now. As we're speaking, they're having a protest in Chicago to not let Donald Trump bring the National Guard in. And you know who's front and center?
No federal troops in the city of Chicago. No militarized force in the city of Chicago.
35 people got shot, Brandon.
We're gonna defend our democracy in the city of Chicago. We're gonna protect the humanity of every single person in the city of Chicago.
It's just crazy.
This is the same guy saying, we don't have resources. You spent billions of dollars and raised people's taxes for illegal immigrants. Maybe if you would have complied and spent that same money on crime reform and keeping people safe, we wouldn't be seeing all these murders.
Well,
we wouldn't be.
He said they need investments.
They over here fighting more for illegal immigrants in their city to be safe than they are for the tax-paying people that put them in position to be there and keeping them safe. And the black people that he swears so friendly and so great in his city, you're not caring about their lives. Their children are dying at the highest rate in the entire nation, in one of the biggest and greatest cities in America, and y'all deny this. There's literal video evidence of youth toting guns, talking about, we want to murder. We want murder.
I got a question.
What the hell?
I got a real question. Y'all really think the police gonna like fix this?
No. But I think
the National Guard will.
You think the National Guard gonna fix it? I feel like they still gonna do it with the National Guard right there.
Hold on, though. Hold on.
I truly
What happened in D.C.? DC had a higher crime rate than Chicago.
No,
but DC's more
per capita.
But look, DC more dense. It's Chicago. It's a little bit more room. They got a little. I feel like they still gonna probably find a way.
I think that is highly likely. I think that's highly likely they'll still commit crimes. But with the amped up police presence, with the federal troops behind them, I think that we can see a better force to combat this crime that we see. But they're trying to stop that. They're trying to say that this crime isn't a problem. There is too much crime in America, and there's too many Democrats that downplay the crime. Oh, the rates are down. Okay, but it's still happening at a high rate. The rate is down from 100%. What?
Listen to some of these Democrat politicians and government leaders. They try to tell you that crime is not surging in their localities. But if you look at Oakland, California is rated number 2, the most dangerous place in the United States. Boston, Massachusetts has seen a 67% increase in homicides year to date from last year to this year. In Chicago, a 78% increase in motor vehicle theft from 2021 to 2025.
Number 2 most dangerous city, Oakland, California, bankrupt and poverty-stricken Democrat leadership. Boston, Massachusetts, 70% increase in murder in the most moved from state in America. Democrat leadership. Chicago, 80% carjackings. 52 people shot, 35 shot over the week. 7 fatally over the weekend. Democrat leadership.
This is insane, bro.
Come on, man.
And why are they trying to push that the crime is going down? Like, what do you guys want?
You know, the crime is, so they might have a 100% crime rate and it's down to 95. Technically reporting it is down.
Okay, they just want to show that under Democrat leadership it is going down.
Now when they say
they gave an argument to Trump then, because if the crime is down, they kind of like deported a lot of criminals.